break the dark. A single spark ignites the heart. But if we turn when justice calls, the chains we forge will bind us all. When truth is silenced, when lies take hold, the cost is freedom, the soul grows cold. No one stands tall while another must fall. Freedom for one depends on freedom for all. We're mavericks of freedom, rebels in the fight, defending every voice, defending every right. For the moment we falter, the moment we stall, we lose our own freedom when we let others fall. You can't stand free while others kneel. When justice fades, it's freedom they steal. An innocent condemned, a crime unspoken, and with it the bond of liberty is broken. No tyrant rules without our consent. Oppression thrives where silence is spent. Stand for the weak, the silence is small, or freedom will crumble for us all. We're mavericks of freedom, guardians of the light, fighting for the truth, for what is just and right. For the rights of one are the rights of all. We rise or we fall by answering the call. Even those we may oppose deserve the rights we all uphold. For if we deny them what is fair, we build our own prison in despair. The fight's not easy, it never will be, but justice for one is the key to be free. We stand as mavericks, together we strive, defending the rights that keep freedom alive. We're mavericks of freedom, rebels in the fight, upholding every truth, protecting every right. When one is oppressed, we're all in the thrall. Freedom for one depends on freedom for all. So take a stand, let your courage rise. Defend the truth, don't compromise. For the soul of the world, the writing's on the wall. Freedom for one depends on freedom for
Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel, everybody. Great to have you all here. Hello, Mavericks. Canada, 5-3 victory over Finland. It means rematch with the USA Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. I believe they're playing in Boston. So, War on Ice 2.0. It's for national pride. We'll talk about that tonight during the call-in portion of our program. Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov has arrived in Saudi Arabia to meet with, ahead of meeting with U.S. officials tomorrow to discuss the war in Ukraine. But at these peace talks, no Ukraine, no EU. So not all the stakeholders are there. We'll talk about that tonight a little bit too. Plus the big plane crash in Toronto at Pearson International. We'll bring you the latest on that. But when we come back on the other side of this, we're going to go, at least for a brief period of time, to the Ontario provincial election leadership debate, which is happening right now. So stay with me. We'll get to that on the other side of this.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching. The world is watching. On TV, the entire world is watching. On social media.
But the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching.
Okay, let's go to the leadership debate for the Ontario election in Canada. Housing crisis is the subject of discussion at the moment. Would the leaders approve building on the green belt?
Absolutely
in
not.
Around the Toronto area.
Doug Ford and the Conservatives decided to open up the green belt, even though he said he wasn't going to do that. I am so happy and proud to have stood up against that move and pushed them back on their heels, and we won alongside farmers and everybody else. But look, our farmland is not up for grabs. It is not up for grabs. We have plenty of other opportunities and space within urban boundaries to build the housing we need. What we're missing is a government that has the political will to build the truly deeply affordable housing that Ontarians deserve.
That is time. Art Stiles, thank you. Doug Ford, I'll turn to you. Would your government build housing on the green belt?
No, and I think it was pretty clear. I said I was, then I wasn't, and I went ahead and did it. But in saying that,
let's give him an opportunity to respond.
You know something? I apologize to the people. Unlike any of you, when you do something, you don't want to apologize. I apologize to the people. We're moving forward. We're building homes. I find it very rich that Bonnie Crombie say she builds homes. She built the least amount of homes in the entire province. Just compare to
Liberal leader.
The new mayor. The new mayor's done more. Carolyn Parrish has done more in 7 months than you did in 10 years. That's
all right. We'll leave it there. Doug Ford, thank you very much. Now, all of the leaders here have made many pledges and policy announcements. Perhaps you've heard them over the last few weeks. Here are some of them.
Going to build the 401 Express Tunnel. It will be the largest tunnel in the entire world.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we would cancel Doug Ford's $2.2 billion subsidy to a foreign-owned mega spa.
The Ontario NDP will end encampments by supporting people and helping them find a home to live in.
We have a plan that will cut personal income taxes, that will cut small business taxes, and that will eliminate the HST off home heating and hydro.
Okay, you've heard the promises. Now let's talk about the plan, and we'll do that with Global News' Colin DeMello. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, David.
Colin, as many people will know, is the president of the Queen's Park Press Gallery, so we're glad to have you here.
Thank you so much, and hello to all of the candidates. Good to be with you today. I'm here to ask you some questions on specific policies that you have been presenting to voters. You will have limited time, just 1 minute to answer, so we ask you to please talk about your policies and not that of your rivals.
After each answer, another one of you will have the opportunity to ask a follow-up question and then debate back and forth. We've randomly selected who will be asking that follow-up.
We will begin with Progressive Conservative leader Doug Ford. You have promised to build a tunnel under Highway 401, but you have not done a feasibility study or said what it will cost. Why should taxpayers give you a blank check?
Well, we know all 400 series highways are going to be maxed out in 10 years. You know, as the folks on the stage here, they don't believe in building highways. They said they're against the 413. They're against the Bradford bypass. They're against the tunnel. You know, they're against everything to build. So I guess my question to all three of them is, where's the traffic going to go? You know, Mike, you say, let's put it on the 407. What are you going to do in 10 years when it's maxed out? You say, put the trucks on there. Talk to the Trucking Association. They don't want it. We're going to invest in transportation. And the only way we can invest in transportation is by having a strong economy. And all three of you have failed the economy. You don't believe in creating new jobs, because to create new jobs, you have to have tax incentives. You have to put money back into the businesses' pockets to invest in their people, into their technology, into infrastructure, and put money back into people's pockets. That's the difference, fundamental difference between myself creating jobs and them chasing 300,000 jobs out of our
traffic in Toronto is just terrible.
Colin and I get to pass
it's
off
the worst,
who
man.
gets to ask a question.
Worse than
Bonnie
LA.
Crombie, you now have the power to ask a follow-up question of Doug Ford.
Thank you, Doug. Doug, I have one question for you, and one question only. After 7 years of lies, why should anyone trust a word you say?
Well, first of all, action speaks louder than words, and people have seen us spend over $200 billion on infrastructure, no matter if it's $50 billion worth of hospitals or $28 billion in building roads and highways, or $70
Doug, you
billion
put us
in
into
building
an extra
transit.
$100 billion
See,
of debt. How does any one government spend $100 billion and pay 2.5 million people still don't have a family
That's the
doctor?
difference between us.
Doug, a fantasy tunnel. How dumb is that, Doug? 40-year project.
In infrastructure.
Okay, let's give him his chance.
Talk over each other.
I believe in building infrastructure. Under the Liberals and NDP, there was nothing built. There was no subways. We're building the largest
That
subway
wasn't scripted or
extension
anything.
in all of North America. We're building highways and roads and bridges because we know one thing. There's
I think they muted her
$56
mic.
billion is costing our economy every single year.
Doug, this tunnel.
Bonnie Crombie an opportunity.
They did. They muted her
Doug,
microphone
this
there
tunnel
for a
is a
minute.
fantasy. This is a fantasy project.
our subway,
it is a
right?
40-year project. It won't be built in my lifetime. It will not alleviate any congestion. It will bankrupt the province at $150 billion. There are alternatives. Why don't you invest
Flying
in the
cars.
alternatives? Why don't you invest more in public transit?
Flying cars.
There's an alternative.
I want flying
highway
cars.
Parallel. The 427
Could do
could
it.
be leveraged. Truck-only lanes on the 407. Doug, this is a fantasy that would bankrupt our province. No one believes you. You make other promises, and you don't get it done,
Okay.
Doug.
Flying
I'll turn
cars.
back to Colin now.
Thank you very much. Our next question is to Green Party leader Mike Schreiner. So you have promised to scrap the current plans to redevelop Ontario
Overpasses.
Place. What would you propose to do with that
Don't go
land
down.
instead?
Be cheaper.
Well, first of all, I think it is a huge mistake and an insult to the people of Ontario that the government is subsidizing a foreign-owned spa at the tune of $2.2 billion, privatizing public space. Ontario Place is for the people of Ontario. It's public space that should be publicly available, and unfortunately, the current government has torn down all the trees, and now they want to subsidize it. Imagine what an insult it is and how unfair it is to people across the province saying, I can't afford a home. Hospitals are closing in my community. We can't get access to a family doctor.
If we had flying
and
cars,
this government is subsidizing
them to
a
Ontario Place.
foreign-owned spa at the tune of $2.2 billion. That is not what the people of Ontario want. They deserve better. They deserve fairness. That's exactly what the Ontario Greens are fighting for.
Mike Schreiner, thank you. I'll turn now to Doug Ford. You get a follow-up question. I would ask that you begin it with a question.
Well, first of all, you know, we're building a world-class destination. We're going to see over 5 to 6 million people go there. And under the
Ontario
Liberals and
Place he's talking
NDP
about.
and the Greens, they let it deteriorate. It was just you know, dandelions coming up and everything else. And we're going to build an amphitheater that's going to attract millions of people. We're going to have 50 acres of public realm that you have to be more
Where's the
informed
question,
on
Doug?
because you didn't even
Do you
know
have a
that.
question for Mike
50
Schreiner?
acres. We're going to build a destination, the most popular destination
Question.
in the entire province.
What's
And
your
all
question?
these people, ironically, they're going to show up.
You're
We're gonna
supposed
build
to
new
ask a
science
question.
center. They're
Okay,
all
that
showing up.
represents
Mark my
time
words.
there.
He didn't ask a question.
Well, you can. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Was there a question?
There wasn't a question there, folks. Let's be clear. There was no question there. Because nobody can defend why you would waste $2.2 billion subsidizing a foreign-owned spa. If it's such a great destination, why are Ontario taxpayers on the hook for this? When our kids are learning in overcrowded classrooms, people can't afford homes, rural hospitals are closing, people can't find a doctor, and you're wasting $2.2 billion on this mega spa in downtown Toronto.
Mega spa.
It's the same kind
I
of
went
waste
to Ontario Place
that
once
the tens of
when I was
billions that
a
you're
kid,
spending
one time.
on this fantasy tunnel
I
that
didn't
will
even
create
like it.
traffic chaos in Toronto. I want to build things, but I want to build things that make sense for the people of Ontario, like homes they can afford.
I do want to give Doug Ford an opportunity to respond.
Well, first of all, let's address this tunnel, and it's going to be one of the largest tunnels in the world.
Let's address it.
And I know, I understand. You believe in bike lanes and riding bikes and planting trees. I get it, and you're good at that. So, but the problem is you won't be able to afford the trees because the economy will go down the tube with all three of you. We're going to continue building transit, building infrastructure, getting people from point A to point B, and we're going to gain $56 billion on the economy instead of losing the economy.
Why don't we do that?
They're all great talkers, but none of them have solutions.
All right, and that is time. I'll turn back now to Colin.
We have another question for NDP leader Marit Stiles. You have promised to end encampments. It is estimated that more than 80,000 Ontarians were homeless last year. What will your party do to end homelessness?
That's a lot for Ontario.
Well, first of all, I mean, the answer to homelessness is building homes. So the first thing that we announced as part of our big platform was Homes Ontario, which is where we get the government back in the business of finally building affordable, permanently affordable housing again.
And we solve social problems like drug addiction
up until the mid-90s,
that results in people not being functional enough to keep a job and function in society.
We'd be way
that's
ahead right now
the solution to homelessness.
But we don't, because they can't.
Then they can afford to buy a house, drive demand, and they'll build the houses to respond to the demand. So I don't even care if I'm talking over top of her because that's not the answer.
60,000 of those are supportive housing, and that's really important for a lot of the folks that we're talking about in our encampments right now. And let's be clear, there are encampments, there are homeless tent encampments in every corner of this province, in every community under this premier and his government.
Because they're drug addicts.
So we have to build supportive housing with wraparound support for people.
All right.
They
run into other problems. We'll turn to Mike Schreiner with a follow-up question, please.
Or they have mental health issues.
I certainly support Ms. Stiles' plan to end
drugs are the
encampments.
big things.
We actually have to get back to building deeply affordable homes in this province. 93% were built before 1995. The question I have for you, though, is do we need to create a whole other government bureaucracy to do that? I've talked to nonprofit and co-op builders who have said, why don't you just flow money to us and we'll get it built? That would be more efficient and effective to achieve our shared objective.
I'm happy to respond to that, Mike, and thank you for your support. Look, every other province except Ontario has an organization that manages this and that coordinates it, and that's what we will need. And that means absolutely working with builders, working with nonprofits, working with municipalities. And I'll say this, our plan is built on the premise as well that we are going to provide a strong provincial partner. We're going to offer up provincial land where we can, right, to make sure we build that housing. But it's that partnership that's crucial, and I know you see it, and people out there see it all the time, that there's community organizations ready to go that want to build this housing, and yet no true provincial partner. So we need to show leadership. And at the provincial level, the NDP is ready to go, right? Again, every other province is doing this. We're not, and we're so far behind. And I would add as well that, if we're going to move forward quickly enough, we have to get going right away. I'm going to start this within the first 100 days that we form government. And that means as well getting Ontario building again, because right now, I would just add one other thing, which is that Ontario, and you know this as well, of course, is like building less housing than anywhere else in the country right now. Our housing starts are down to 50s levels.
I agree with you. We need to get going right away. This is exactly why. Let's not create another bureaucracy to do it. We have a ministry in place. Let's just flow the money to the nonprofits and co-ops and permanent supportive builders so they can get going right away.
Regulations out of the way. There's so many layers of regulations.
Our next question is for Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie. Your party has promised to cut middle-income taxes for middle-income earners, but your plan doesn't actually cut taxes for anyone earning less than $50,000. What will you do to help lower-income Ontarians?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I really thank you for that, because people are hurting right now. You know, I'm in the grocery store and I see moms picking up meat and putting it back down and going to the checkout aisle and holding their breath. So I thought, what can we do to make life more affordable for people? Yes, we're going to cut small business taxes, but we're going to cut income taxes for people earning $75,000 or less, and we're going to take the HST off home heating and hydro, and we're going to build homes that are more affordable. But for other folks entirely, we're doubling the ODSP for people who are living with disabilities. I believe in phased-in rent controls over a period of time. And by the way, we're going to look at auto insurance premiums because they're out of control. So overall, my goal is to cut your taxes, to grow the economy, much like I did in Mississauga. And I'm so proud of my record in Mississauga, attracting investment, creating jobs, setting us up for growth, and getting elected by large margins, because I think the people of Mississauga had a lot of confidence in what I did to stimulate the economy and build jobs.
All right. Thank you very much, Bonnie Crombie.
Leave the auto insurance sector alone.
Well, I'm going to take a slightly different tact. I heard a few things there that I think the liberal leader needs to read some of her own policy on this. But, you know, I wanted to go after another thing, because what I'm finding increasingly as I go around the province is that people are paying out of pocket for health care, for actually things that we, you know, as Canadians believe should be absolutely free. You should be able to access health care when and where you need it, not out of pocket. And I was really shocked to see that the Liberal leader, that her party has received $25,000 in donations from private healthcare insiders.
Do you have a question?
And I'd like to know how she can stand here and say she's going to save healthcare, which, by the way, was created. Hallway Healthcare was created under the previous Liberal government. When she's receiving those kinds of donations from private healthcare providers.
Okay, we'll get.
Yeah, I think the NDP leader is envious of my fundraising record to date. I will say that the NDP thinks that money grows on trees. You know, you just can't promise everything to everyone all the time. Okay. That's just not a serious plan.
Yeah, because that's what you do.
Plan. When I was the mayor of Mississauga, I had to balance my budget. I never ran a deficit. I did that for the past 10 years. I balanced my books for 10 years, just like people have to do at home. They have to balance their budgets at home. They know that they have to save in bad times. That's the difference between me and you.
I think I need to ask this question a little bit more clearly, maybe. You said that you are going to fix the healthcare crisis, that a previous Liberal government, I will argue, started the whole hallway healthcare crisis, right? You don't take responsibility for that, but you also will not take responsibility for the fact that you have collected $25,000 from private healthcare insiders at a time when we are seeing people literally having to pay out of pocket under Doug Ford's government for healthcare. You know, Ontarians are very clear. They do not want to head in that direction.
We follow the rules to the T. Absolutely. And I have a plan that will invest $3 billion, not the 1.8 that the Premier is going to do. $3 billion to ensure that everyone in Ontario has a family doctor. That is my pledge.
That is time. Colin, thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Good to see you. Now, we asked some voters what issues they have not been hearing leaders talk about during the election campaign.
Car theft, crime on the streets, the drugs, and the guns. Never used to be like that.
That's true.
The waiting time at the emergency, it's like hours and hours. I'm talking from my own experience.
I think they need to talk about health care, and I think they need to talk about education so badly.
A lot of people are suffering it. Right now there is a situation with the food bank. That shouldn't be happening. This is Canada.
Well, for this next segment, Siobhan Morris joins us. She is the Queen's Park Bureau Chief for CTV News. Siobhan, hello.
Hello. Thank you, David. Hello, candidates. I want to ask you some questions about things that are not in your platform. You'll have 1 minute to give us your position. There is no open debate in this section. We will begin with Marit Stiles. You have vocally criticized the government's closure of supervised drug consumption sites, but you've given no details about how you will respond to the addictions crisis. What is your plan?
Well, first of all, look, as I've traveled around the province, without question, addiction and mental health care crisis is rife. It is in every community, in every corner of this province, and it has certainly gotten much worse in the last 7 years. You go to Sudbury, for example, you see that corner with all the white crosses that was built by a woman who lost her son Miles to an overdose. The answer to addiction is healthcare, right? That means that you do not take resources out of communities without actually putting back more and better resources. And that's not what we've seen under Doug Ford and the Conservative government. We saw them take away supports and not replace them. And I like the healthcare hub idea. That came from communities. But it is a drop in the bucket what Doug Ford and the Conservatives are proposing. It will not address the addiction crisis. When somebody needs help, they need it right away, not 2 months later, not a year later. They need it immediately.
All right, Margaret Stiles, thank you.
The next question is for Doug Ford. You promised in 2018 to end hallway health care, but overcrowding in hospitals now is worse than it was then. Why should voters believe that you will fix the problem now?
Because we've invested more than any other government. We've invested over $33 billion, over a 30% increase. We're actually building medical schools for the first time in some areas over 100 years. As the Liberals got rid of medical school seats, we're adding hundreds and hundreds. We've registered over 15,000 doctors, 100,000 nurses. And the way we do this, the foundation of healthcare, is very simple. You have a strong economy. That's why we've been able to invest in building more medical schools, having more doctors. We're paying for their tuition, by the way. All doctors, if you stay in primary care, you get your tuition paid for. We're paying for all the nurses right across the province for their education that none of these parties have ever done. Nurse practitioners, we're taking care of them on their education as well. We're doing everything we can to build the system, along with bringing Dr. Jane Philpott in, that will connect every single person to a primary caregiver.
All right. Doug Ford, thank you very much. Siobhan.
A question now for Mike Schreiner. For 10 years, you've been vowing to get rid of Catholic school boards, merge them with public boards. Your new platform doesn't mention that. Why not?
Yeah, because right now, we have a crisis in our public education system. The Ford government has cut per pupil funding for education by $1,500. The priority for people right now is to shore up our public education system. And that means supporting both our public and Catholic boards to hire more teachers, educational assistants, special educators, and just caring adults, social workers, so our students have the supports they need. I think coming out of the disruptions from the pandemic, we need to shore up our public education system. And unfortunately, the current government has failed to do that. Ontario Greens are committed to reversing the $1,500 per student cut. We will invest in clearing the repair backlog, and we will ensure that we can lower class sizes because we would hire caring adults in our schools.
All right, Mike Schreiner, thank you. Siobhan.
And we turn now to Bonnie Crombie. You have opposed building new highways in the GTA, but you haven't talked really about how you would address the issue of traffic congestion. What is your plan to tackle gridlock?
So certainly there are a lot of alternatives, and I will say this government has not acted on any of them. We need to invest more in our public transit systems. Look at the GO train lines. London, town of London, has been promised a GO train line. It wasn't delivered. All-day two-way GO train service on the Milton line. It was promised again. It was never delivered. We're talking about $150 billion fantasy tunnels. Rather than utilizing existing resources like leveraging the 427 or truck-only lanes on the 407, there's a lot more public infrastructure that can be built, public transit that we need to invest in. Right across the province, look at the highways in the north, twinning the 2+1 lanes in 11 and 17, adding the extra 68 kilometers on Highway 69 in the north, because those roads are so treacherous and we rely on them. But here in the GTA, invest more in public transit to move people around. Here is where the needs are. People need to get to their jobs, and they need to get to their appointments and to their school.
That's the
Bonnie
fantasy.
Crombie, thank you very much. And Siobhan, thank you very much.
Every time. This is what led to the problems we have right now, man. This is what happened. Okay, let's take a little break. We're going to go to the phones too, and we might come back to this debate a little bit at some point. But I think we've seen enough for the moment. there's all kinds of other news going on. Let's talk about that hockey game and the big rematch coming up, which is the real story for Thursday. It's all about national pride. Thursday night, 8 p.m. Who will prevail? Canada or USA? Maybe we'll settle this 51st state dispute once and for all on Thursday night.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here's the number to call. Call early, call often. We can go through the day's top news stories while we chat on the phone. If you call this number. Okay, Mavericks, it's call-in time. Join the conversation. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Exercise your right to free speech. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Maverick News. Call now. The world is watching and listening to you. Okay, I am here. You're there, and you need to be in the phone system. So I'll put that number up on the screen on the ticker on the bottom. Also, if you're inclined to help us out, we do need help to keep this broadcast on the air every night. And you can do that by donating at freedomreporters.com. Please like, share, subscribe. Also, I will shortly put the link to the other YouTube channel in the chat again, and if you guys would do us a great favor and go subscribe over there and even watch over there, that would be much better for us. I'm sort of in the process, I think, of retiring the YouTube channel, the main YouTube channel, and migrating things over to our secondary channel. So for a bunch of different reasons, mainly because YouTube keeps suppressing everything over on the main channel. It's a bit of a problem. So for the long-term health of the program, I think we need to move over to that other channel. I'll put that in the chat in a little while. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Please, please, please help us. Really need your help. And thank you to those of you who have been supporting us. And I need to catch up on couple of emails to people. So if you've had correspondence with us, or if you've donated in the last week or so, 2 weeks, you might be getting an email from me to say thank you or to respond. Now, that phone number, Let's get that up on the air. Here it is right there. 1-647-734-4220. And then when prompted, when you call in, punch in that PIN meeting number, 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign, the number sign. And that will get you straight into the studio for the call-in portion of the show, which begins now. So feel free to call at your convenience. But do it soon, before it's too late. Okay, so let's get you the latest on that plane crash today in Toronto. Show you the video that we had, that we posted up there on our X account / Twitter account. Pretty crazy stuff, man. The plane ended up on its roof. Oh, we've got somebody in the call queue here already. Let's see who we have. And let's get them up on the screen. Here we go. All right. A whole bunch of buttons to click to get the phone system on here. Okay, and almost there. Gotta go back one more click. There we go. All right, who's on the line with us?
Oh, hey there, Rick. Michael back again. I'm sure you're might be glad to talk to me without as much political debate this time. Maybe we'll talk hockey.
Yeah, same thing these days.
Ain't it?
So what's on your mind, sir?
Well, what's on my mind, I tell you what, is so when I sat down to watch that game with the old lady there, the first Canada and U.S. game, and I'm not bragging or nothing, but I've had the privilege to play with our leaf on the jersey quite a bit overseas, and I'll tell you what, you do not boo your opponent's anthem like that. It's a jinx on the team. It's a hex on the team. It's a terrible start to the game, and I'm Canadian, and I literally played with the flag on my jersey, and after seeing that start, just gave me such an uneasy feeling for the rest and the outcome of that game. I honestly turned to the old lady and said, if there are not fights in the crowd before the game starts, I would be surprised. And I don't know if it's the right venue to take it into sport like that. I mean, I can understand the national pride and the people that haven't been in a situation where you're representing the country. I can understand it 100% why it developed that way.
Well, hang on a second here. I lost you on the screen because I'm trying to get the other footage up here. Hang on a second. Let me get you back up. You're right off. Just give me a moment here while I fix all of this again. This is difficult, to say the least. Hang on. It gets complicated when I have to try to get the video up on through the phone system. Hang on. There we go. Okay, let's just bring you back up. And you're back on now. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So, like I was saying, it's just, I don't think it's fair to the players and to the sport to interject the politics onto it. I can see where people get heated, especially when you're playing as a representative of the country, and you see that you hear that literally going on in the venue.
But it's inevitable, and it happens in the Olympics. The one that's most prominent in my mind is the old Canada Cup series in like 1972, 1974, which shows how old I am. The big goal by Paul Henderson, that is iconic in Canadian history, and that was because of Canada playing Russia, which was very political at the time. So you get into these international tournaments, and politics just inevitably at times becomes interjected.
And you would not believe, as a player, how that energizes your game.
Oh yeah.
And it's something real. Even on an amateur level, like, you really see some epic games between in these international tournaments. But what in hindsight, what I find the most funny of it all is remember, no slight to our Canadiens fans, but the venue is in Montreal, right? And so I find the ultimate irony in the fact that for quite a while, politically, Quebec is always jeering a lot of what the rest of Canada does. But at this point in time, they were the most on board with the current political trends in Canada, almost more than the rest of the country, with that type of a response. Mm-hmm. I find that quite ironic, really.
Yeah, I think we have another caller joining us here. Is that my friend John?
It's Rimby John, Team Canada, Rickster. How are you?
I'm just fine. Did you get to see this? We didn't even talk. We're still talking about that Canada versus U.S. game from the other day. We didn't even talk about today's game between Canada and Finland. We haven't even talked about the plane crash in any detail yet, but we had some people taken to hospital, multiple injuries there. No report as the last word, for me anyway, that anyone was killed in that crash, which is a miracle, really, when you see the footage we're about to show you. But John, go ahead. What are your thoughts here tonight with regard to everything we've already talked about? What's on your mind?
Well, I just wanted to thank you very much. That interview about a week ago with that General Vallely.
Oh, yes.
I found that a very, very interesting and enlightening show. And I don't know if I could bounce a couple of questions off you that were kind of nagging at me, but what do you think?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, that was a very eye-opening interview with General Vallely.
Paul Vallely, Major General out of the U.S., yes.
Yeah. I found the interview interesting, and I'm just wondering, would he be supplying any intelligence possibly to the CIA or Pentagon?
Well, he, on his website for the organization that he represents, it says right on the website that they provide intelligence information to the Department of Defense, FBI, and CIA. Now, in the interview, he seemed to be somewhat confused about it, and I asked him, but he didn't seem eager to confirm the CIA aspect of it. Here, I'm going to show the viewers the website just briefly, take you guys off the feed, but what is it? It's right on his website here somewhere. Mission and goals. Yeah, right down here. I'll read it to you if I can find it. There it is, right there. It says, it's definitely on the website because I went back and checked after the interview. Yeah, Department of Defense and FBI and the CIA. It is on there. Yeah, right here. Studies prepared and distributed to the White House and to senior government officials and offices such as DOD and CIA, right there on the website. I can highlight that. And State Department. So and in addition, they have briefed the FBI, Congress, law enforcement, and many other agencies. That's what it says right on their website. So why he's confused, I don't know. But I didn't write the website, so it's on there, John.
Well, I also found it a little confusing, Rick, how he would have some involvement in the Canadian Freedom Convoy of 2022 involving Pat King. I found that odd.
It does raise some questions, doesn't it, about the ethics of, a retired, semi-retired, or freelancing major general from the U.S. who still is involved with an organization that provides intelligence to the U.S. and we know that he has acknowledged providing that he was in direct contact with some of the key organizers of the Freedom Convoy while it was happening back in 2022. Even providing direction, I guess, whether that the degree to which that information or that advice that was coming from him was followed up on, I'm not exactly sure. In fact, still from his interview, I have something queued up here. Not queued up, but it's in the video files. Because he's been on many live streams. Here, I'll run one for you. He was on another program with one of the key organizers, this Norm Traversy. Now, I wouldn't say he was. There were several different groups in the Freedom Convoy. This group was involved in a fairly major way, and now we're learning that General Vallely, he was in direct phone communication constantly on a regular basis with this Norm Traversy, and then the information apparently was going back to Donald Trump. Here, I'll play you the clip.
I and some other people in Ottawa were the reception committee. I live in Ottawa. I've got a friend who owns...
That's by the way, that's Norm Traversy talking. General Vallely is the person in the top left-hand corner.
I and some other people in Ottawa were the reception committee. I live in Ottawa. I've got a friend who owns a boutique hotel, a 24-room hotel, and she booked rooms for only people that knew me, and we ran that convoy from this hotel in downtown Ottawa. A lot of the people helping were ex-military and ex-police.
So, and then, just to further illustrate, I've got another one here somewhere. Hang on. So this is also on the same broadcast after the general left the broadcast. But this is Mr. Traversy explaining the connection between the general and Donald Trump.
And he is an advisor to President Trump. So he's kind of our way to contact Trump. Cool. I got an email from Donald Trump in 2020 thanking me. So we've been in touch during the convoy. I was one of the organizers. And every evening I would phone General Vallely, and he had a map of Ottawa on his wall. He's in Montana. And he would then report to President Trump. And he would also give me assignments like, go to Waverly Street and do this, or tell those guys not to do that, or whatever. And he was...
Oops. So, there's definitely a connection there. Now, the general was, as I understand it, the entire time providing this, there was this communication happening while he was at his home base of sorts in Montana. And then you had these organizers there involved in this protest, which the government was very fearful of. So I guess that raises some questions of ethics and so on with you, John?
Well, the Trump connection was kind of a red flag question mark to me, but the involvement with the General Vallely, with Pat King, and then something about an Ottawa map. He was in direct contact with Pat King. And I just said to myself, my inner child, like, is it ethical or even legal for, a retired general from the United States to be involved in a foreign country with political stuff behind the scenes? Am I off base thinking that?
I don't think necessarily you are, John. I see where you're going, and it does raise questions about foreign interference in our politics. It, if the general was entirely retired and just in private life, I suppose it might be just overlooked. But I think that there's maybe some validity to your concerns or your questions, if you want to put it that way, about the ethics involved, because he clearly was at the time in direct communication and continues to be part of the Trump MAGA government ecosystem. Has been providing advice and direction to Donald Trump, certainly was at that time, direct back to him, and also he's providing intelligence, which they gather in a number of countries, including Canada, back to the U.S. government, to the FBI, CIA, Department of Defense. So I don't know. You can certainly look at it and say, hey, wait a minute, you have basically a contractor or some sort of intelligence advisor, a military general from the U.S. side involved in Canadian politics. And then, he's also, this is, I guess you're kind of right in raising questions, because he's also advocating for the U.S. absorbing Canada as a state, which is top of mind for people right now. So I think it is maybe an issue.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm in Alberta, but I'm definitely Team Canada. My family's been here 107 years in Canada. He's I would I don't know if I'm out of line. I'd love to see you have him on the show again in the future. I found him very intriguing, enlightening. He certainly isn't. He's around 85 years old. Well, he's not sitting on the veranda on the golf course in Palm Springs, is he? Seems to be a very active gentleman.
Certainly is, I think, involved in things politically. He's writing all the time on his Substack. He's, before we did that first interview, of course, I did do some research into Mr. Vallely, the Major General, and yeah, it seems he's pretty active still within the freedom movement, even in Canada, in direct communication with these guys, because those clips I just ran, that's from a very recent live stream, and I know that he's very involved in the freedom movement, the sovereign citizens movement, I think, in the U.S. as well, and politics, and then through his what's his name of his website again? Stand Up America U.S. Foundation. That's all steeped in politics. And yeah, man, you start tracing this stuff back, and it all goes into the Western separatist movement, I think even the Quebec separatist movement, and then see the reason we really, also, I guess you're probably concerned because of that recording, that secret recording that was made of the people trying to reconstitute a convoy last month.
Well, it was that, but it took me back to my days, Rick, in Alberta with the freedom movement out of Red Deer in 2022, when I inadvertently had that barbecue in Ponoka County with Marcus Ray. And he was involved in, we had him on the show a number of times. He was involved in that sovereign citizen, I think, movement out of the United States, and actually bragged at the Ponoka barbecue about the massitive connections. Yeah, well, I mean,
I don't really want to go down that road here with you
the media
tonight,
destroyed that one.
Because I don't know if General Vallely has any connection to Mr. Marcus Ray. I don't know. I do know that he's connected certainly to these folks.
Well, Rick, I would love for you to have him back on the show. He was very, very enlightening, very engaging, and maybe even open up the phone line soon. I'd love to see you have him back on the show. I think very interesting.
If you've got questions, maybe he'll answer them. I can reach out to him. He was very friendly, and he has been messaging me a little bit since then. I think he would possibly be open to coming back for an encore performance. And I told him I'd like to have him on and use him as a resource from time to time as a guest on the program to talk about geopolitics and because he's been involved in in military operations around the world with the U.S. government over the years, from Vietnam to Syria to, well, you name it. I think he's been pretty much there on the front lines. Graduate of West Point, Major General. He's got a long history, and a long history, I think, too, with MAGA and Donald Trump, and now with even the Canadian Freedom Movement and Freedom Convoy. Although I think he was always, obviously, he was in the background doing whatever he was doing. And it does, honestly, I mean, it raises some ethical questions for me as well, especially when I hear his name mentioned in that secret recording, which we brought up here the other night. And I played it. I played a portion of that for him on the program. I haven't played the entire recording, which maybe we still will in a night ahead. I don't know. I don't know if it serves the public interest or not. We may do that. I don't know if people are that interested in it. I think it is significant. And but the bottom line is, I asked him, if he would encourage people to remain peaceful, because at least one of the people in that recording clearly did not want to be peaceful. So that's a concern, and we're always telling people to remain peaceful. Don't do anything stupid.
Yeah, absolutely. No, a very, very interesting, very enlightening gentleman. Mr. That's a kind of an unusual name, Zala Lee. But what a fantastic interview, Rick.
Yeah, well, we can maybe get him back on and get some clarification from him. If you want to look in the chat here, are other people interested in this? Well, do you guys want to get General Valley?
Well, I'm interested, but I don't want to talk over. I want to talk over his points. They're very good. Then you're having a good discussion, right?
Yeah, go ahead. What do you think?
To be honest with you, I don't want to talk out my backside on a topic I don't know very much about, so I'm letting you all discuss it. But I will tell you one thing that a fellow Albertan on the other side of the line knows all about, and that's how they deal with our environmental situations here in Alberta. And that might tie into something, not to derail you, but with this aircraft accident. And we all know that when it comes to snow removal, they love to push stuff until the last minute, because why clean it in the middle of the fall when you can clean it after it's all fallen and spend double? So between that and I hate to say it, but the trends of seeing a diversity higher but behind a lot of these incidents are very high. But I'd like to lean more on the side that they're just trying to pinch pennies and cut costs on stuff like snow removal. But I'm not going to get into your debate here. This is, like I said, I don't know. I don't know my head from a hole in the ground from what y'all are talking about with this interview, so I'm not talking into it.
Well, Rick, if I could leave you with a final thought from Team Canada out of Alberta. And we talked earlier, a little bit of sad news out of Alberta. Pastor Arthur Pawlowski's mom died suddenly last week. Her name was Grace Pawlowski, and I'd like on behalf of you, Rick, and the Maverick family worldwide to extend our sincere condolences to Pastor Arthur, his wife, his family and his brother. And the lady, Grace Polofsky, she was only 70 years old, Rick, and suffered a stroke last week, unexpected. So I'm thinking about him. He's a new friend, and maybe in the coming days we can maybe have him back on the show, because he did go to the Trump inauguration, I understand, and I think he'd have an interesting viewpoint, Rick. So I leave you with that final comment, my friend.
Okay, well, thank you, John. I appreciate you calling in as always, and we'll see where all that goes. And
please pray for
Pastor Arthur's mother.
Yeah, pray for him and his family, and So anyways, thank you again for taking my call, and we'll catch you guys on the flip side. We'll get some more callers in.
Okay, and let's just update this plane crash story out of Toronto Pearson. First thing I'll do is run this video that we got a hold of, and it's available on our Twitter page, X, Maverick News X.
We're in Toronto. We just landed. Our plane crashed. It's upside down. Fire department's on site. Upside down. Everybody, most people appear to be okay. We're all getting off. Some smoke going on.
So there was all that, and so we know that at least 17 people were injured in this Delta Airlines plane crash. Happened around 2 p.m. this afternoon. It was Endeavour Flight 4819 arriving from Minneapolis, St. Paul in Toronto. There's an audio recording out there someplace of air traffic control saying the aircraft is upside down and burning. And all arrivals and departures at Pearson have been shut down for hours now. And
that's just terrible.
They just resumed about an hour ago with flights in and out of the airport. And we're kind of trying to keep tabs on it here. So it was carrying 80 people, 76 passengers, 4 crew, 22 were Canadians on board, and as I say, about 17 people taken or injured, and a few of those injuries critical, and at least one child taken to hospital as well. At least one, might have been more.
Well, my immediate thought on that is, looking at the footage, it looks almost like an emergency response effort, not something that, if you heard about that from the flight control tower in the air, you would have crews on ground waiting, and not just half a dozen people. That footage, you look at it, you see people, they're coming up to it not knowing what to expect, not knowing what's going on. How much time do you have to land that thing? How much time was there between it was on the ground and between they heard where they had problems in the air, right? You see, if that were a Hollywood movie, you'd see 3-4 fire trucks out there, everybody blazing out to the runway. Yet here we have, half a dozen people in snowsuits trying to figure out what's happening, right? It really screamed either lack of resources, cost cutting, or incompetency. I don't know.
I don't know. I would not be jumping to any conclusions, or I'm not going to engage in any degree of speculation like that. When I'm looking at this footage, when I see this plane on upside down and the condition that it's in, it suggests to me that something happened maybe upon touchdown. Because and to not have people killed immediately, it suggests to me that this happening upon landing, something caused it to flip over, really bad weather, crosswinds, I don't know. So I wouldn't want to start pointing fingers and blaming anybody at this point.
But what I did hear was that they already saw it upside down, and what that one person said, it's on fire upside down in the air and in contact with the air traffic control. So, how long can it take for a response? This is where place where they have emergency response on staff, on payroll to deal with this.
Well,
What's going on?
If that thing had flipped upside down and then landed on its roof, I don't think you would. It looks. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how this went down. We need more information. In my mind, if the thing is inverted and then comes down on its roof on the pavement of the runway,
that would have been a disaster.
It's going to collapse and crush everybody. It's not strong enough. It had to have come down and then flipped, in my view. But I don't know. I mean, I don't see any video of the actual crash. So
that's right. I agree with you 100%. If that thing would have, so people say the wind is terrible, the sheer wind coming down on that, right? But so then it would have slipped, like you see on its roof, without the casualties of landing that way. But then that completely contradicts what they're trying to tell you is the contact from the air traffic control tower, where they've seen it already struggling that far out. So I don't know.
But
I don't know.
From the audio, I don't know at what point air traffic. I don't know when it flipped over. If it flipped over when it was already on the ground, if it was flipped over in midair. I doubt that it flipped upside down midair and then came down on its roof. Highly unlikely, because I don't think the fuselage would be able to withstand the impact and have people walk away that way. I can only, but I'm going to wait for more information because I don't want to be wrong. And who's joining us on the line now?
It's Isabel.
Hello, Isabel. Do you have any insight for us, or just some thoughts?
I was watching that when it hit the news about the plane.
Yeah.
They were saying that the plane came in too slow. This was from a retired pilot.
Okay.
And he said that what they thought, by what he's seen, was the plane came in too slow with the wind that was there. And then the updraft is what flipped the plane.
Mm. So it was down.
They said he would have had time maybe to...
So it was about to touch down or something. It was very close to touching down, and then the updraft caused it to kind of do this as it landed?
That's what he was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was coming in at too low of speed.
Mm-hmm.
It should have been coming in a faster speed, but the speed that he said with what he saw, how things were happening, was that the plane wasn't coming in at a fast enough speed, because Pearson has a very long runway, right?
Yeah.
And with the wind was at 40 kilometers. But there was updraft off of the tarmac.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see it there where the guys are walking around. The people had already been taken off the plane with what you see there.
Yeah.
So it looks like there's not a lot of people, but guaranteed prior to that, the people were removed. And there was a baby on that plane.
Yeah, I believe that child, I think, was taken to Sick Kids Hospital.
Apparently that child was on the parent's lap, be it the mother or the father, when that plane flipped.
Oh, my
So
God.
you could see that the fact that, okay, if it wasn't coming in quick enough, if it was coming in too slow, it wasn't beating the updraft from the tarmac. So that's why the pilot said it would flip the plane. Yeah. He said at that time, knowing those conditions, he would have done another turnaround and come in a little quicker as a pilot. Yeah. But he said then you can't guarantee any of that. So you really can't blame anybody. But what is it, a wing fell off the plane?
Yeah, I guess. And I mean, again, I don't have video of it. I can't see what happened. And it makes sense, though, what you're saying, because if it had inverted, well, it was like still, significantly elevated, and then it had come down, it would have come down much harder, and I think you wouldn't have any survivors. But what happened, it had to have happened while it was, very low to the ground, and then the wind must have caused it to flip somehow, as you're indicating, some sort of an updraft that had unequal pressure on one side and caused the plane to do that.
Yeah. And I mean, that's with the way that ex-pilot explained it, it makes a lot of sense. So it's like a paper airplane. You know, if you throw the paper airplane and there's a fan on, it's going to flip that paper upside down.
Yeah. And as you can see from the video, like pretty strong winds, and you get a gust of wind like that, right?
Yeah.
And you're not expecting it. And you've got
you
yourself
shouldn't
a
have to
problem.
read it from inside your cockpit what the wind is doing outside. This is what the air traffic control and the instruments on the plane report.
Yeah, but the point is when you're having inclement weather like we're having today, that the wind can change instantly. You can get a gust of wind like that. It can change. I mean, you're getting the wind direction, but from air traffic control, and you have instruments to measure that stuff. But as you know, just being out, just go outside right now. I was outside twice today walking my dog in the frigid cold, and 1 minute I was getting my head blown off by a gust of wind, and the next minute it was much calmer. So it's been very unpredictable
upside down. I mean, to some extent, we have to look at what. So what else did they do? Was there any alert before that there were adverse conditions? How about after? After the runway, of course, had been cleared. Maybe did they send requests for other flights to land in a different area, or delay, or do a different type of approach? It's going to pan out in the future. They're going to do, of course, investigation into this, and we're going to find out a lot more of the technical detail. But I mean, it's not the type of thing that happens regularly. I mean, try landing in anywhere in southern Alberta when you have the 100-kilometer-hour shear winds in Lethbridge. Mm-hmm. I mean, it ain't great, even in Calgary. Yeah. So it's not the first for the aviation industry to have to deal with this. I just don't get. I'm just thankful that there were injuries, but I mean, if anything would have happened any higher up, it would have been really catastrophic.
Mm-hmm.
But this was, am I not mistaken? This was an American plane, right? It's a Delta.
Yeah.
So maybe wherever they were coming from had not been used to the type of weather we've been having lately. I mean, these winds, yes, like Rick is saying, they are horrific.
Well, it was coming from Minneapolis. They have cold weather there too, like they do. I don't know what the weather is today, but we've had snowstorms all across this, whole zone of Canada, U.S. over the past few days. A couple of big snowstorms, but they do de-ice these planes before they take off. Who knows? I mean, there's so many factors here, especially as you could see today. Yeah. You had cold temperatures, you had some snow, some blowing heavy winds at times, gusting winds, unpredictable.
Yep.
That makes it very difficult. And these planes, they're sophisticated. They have lots of instrumentation on board to help these pilots land these planes. They don't just do it on their own. They have instruments and some degree of automation, and something went wrong. But what that thing is, we're not sure. But that's why they have the investigators.
And we will find out, like the other caller is saying. It's going to take time. There's going to be video. There's going to be the black box. Everybody's going to find out eventually.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just hoping that, I mean, they said there was no deaths occurred, so that's one good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to get on a plane lately? Not with what I've been hearing.
Yeah, these things seem to come in groups, don't they? These kinds of news stories.
We had a rush on cargo ships. Then we had a rush on bridges. Then we had a rush on fires. Then floods. Now planes, trains. Yeah.
Don't forget the drones.
It's not the way that we want to be besting each other with negative stuff from nation to nation, is it?
Yeah, you can't forget the drones, man, and the alien attacks. Strange times we live in, that's for sure. What do you think about the whole Canada-USA rematch coming up on Thursday, Isabel?
Well, I'm not much of a sports fan. I may not agree with what the fans did, and I get it. But I think, Canada's been pushed to the brink where we've got to the point where we're going to show our strength. Unfortunately, it might have been not the greatest place to show it, but I think we've been pushed enough into the 51st state garbage. We've got to the point where, you know what? We are polite. We're friendly. We say sorry. We say thank you. We say good day. Now we're going to say F you because we're done.
That's right.
We are so done.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I
started a little project making up some shirts. So I got the 51. Well, it says the 51st state, but it says 5 state with the middle finger up, and it says my ass.
There you go. Yeah.
I am not selling my country.
Good. Yeah.
And I'm an immigrant.
Yeah.
I'm an immigrant. So, and I'm still just I am a permanent resident, and I would love to get my citizenship, but I can't afford it. So I don't know where these guys that are coming into the country are getting it for free, because I'd like to know.
Yeah, it doesn't seem fair. Who else just joined us on the line?
Pardon?
Well, it's your good old friend Dragon.
Dragon from Montreal.
Oh, Dragon! Our Frenchman. Hi, how are you? Bonjour, monsieur.
Bonjour, bonjour. I'm doing great. How are you?
Fine.
So I had a little something to tell you about that crash. I was actually listening to a broadcaster earlier, and on his research that he was doing, because he's really like Rick, pretty much. He's really into like fact. He's not going to rabbit hole and stuff. And Steve, the guy, was researching on the subject that the gust wind at the moment where the plane crash was about 40 miles an hour, if that makes sense, something along these ways. So yeah, it's pretty good gust.
Yeah, and it goes back and forth and up and down, and in 1 second it can change. When the weather's like this. So. But again, I have no idea. I don't know what happened. What the cause was.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I was thinking too. That even though they've got the instruments, you can't gauge really on a split-second updraft. Yeah. But you could probably try. And I'm not blaming anybody. I mean, these things happen, Yeah.
Frankly, I'm surprised we don't have more planes crash when you look at some of the weather these guys fly in. These pilots are amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, question of security and how our Canadian airplane or aircraft security goes, we're pretty high top on that. I mean, we have drastic requirement that we ask to our pilot and whoever works around the airplanes. They need strict training, and they keep themselves pretty alert. So yeah, I mean, I'm just glad that there's no death in that crash, that everybody's kind of fine, and yeah, except the few injuries. Well, injuries for sure. We could not argue that few injuries could happen in that kind of crash, but I'm just so glad that nobody's dead. So, I mean, we're lucky on that one. Yes. We kind of missed a big bullet.
And you're not kidding about the regulation and the requirements in the Canadian aviation industry, because that if you have one of you buy your son one of the little drones for Christmas. If it's over 260 grams, they actually need a beginner's pilot's license to operate that thing. And it's no joke. You take the same course as you would as you're starting, with a small aircraft. And they have to pass that thing and have that certificate to operate it. And it still doesn't give them a right to fly over people without approval and that type of thing. But yeah, our Canadian regulations are very, very competent and very strict when it comes to this type of thing. So I don't see, I don't know. there's always room for error and whatnot, and the climate throws in a lot of it too. But I mean, for a wind to flip it, like when you look at the damage and the way it landed, that had to happen as it was coming down, with literally just hovering. Otherwise, it would have ripped the top of that thing when it came down, and there would have been so much more problem. But I can't see a wind doing that if you adjust the flaps. I mean, I'm not a pilot, but
I wouldn't be surprised. Let's say, okay, and I'm just as my own self. I'm a plane simulator kind of guy. I do like plane simulation. And say that one of your flappers on the side of the plane is blocked by the ice, and you got one gust as you come down at a certain, like the lady, like Isabel said earlier, if you come at a too low speed, and you got some gust coming from underneath, it will flip you down like no tomorrow. And the possibility that the crash didn't made any deaths is that because actually it's luckily it would have been the wing that have kind of suppressed the whole pressure from crashing down completely and crashing everyone underneath. So yeah, and probably that the snow have also have done something in effect of cushioning the people underneath.
I think you might be right about a lot of that. But specifically when you said that if there was damage to the aircraft prior to them trying to deal with those wind landing, that there would be a problem. And then when you couple that with the fact of those reports from the air traffic control that the thing was already struggling before, there might well have been damage that prevented them from doing what they wanted to do when they were landing it. That really does make sense.
Yeah. And plus, I mean, it's not that I will not point out that the people that was supposed to look into how, like the testing before going out on the air. I mean, these guys were on the air for a long time. So by the time you come from, I believe it was from Minnesota, right? So if he comes from Minnesota to Canada, there's a lot of time for your plane to gather some snow and ice to get somewhere where you don't want it.
Here's some footage of passengers exiting the plane.
Everything, drop it! Come on! Don't take over here! Step on the right! On the right!
Holy fuck! Holy fuck! Holy fuck! Oh my fucking god!
Wow.
Yo, I was just on this fucking plane! Oh my god. Yo, I was just on this fucking plane. Holy fuck.
Everything, drop it! Come on!
Amazing.
It is so amazing that that thing didn't catch fire. Those people being upside down would have been, I mean, it's amazing. They say there's no higher power. It kind of makes you wonder. It wasn't their time.
Okay, hang on a second, guys. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back on the other side. Don't go away.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, we're back with the Mavericks calling in tonight. And just a reminder that on the 19th, so 2 days from now, we will have Michael Bator with the People's Party of Canada on candidate. It'll be it's going to be a fairly big event actually, because it's going to be live streamed out over a whole bunch of different platforms, not just ours. It'll be like a network. We're going to host the broadcast here. It's an opportunity to have a meet, I guess, an online meet with Michael, and he's been on the program before, quite a long time ago, but there will be a call-in. You guys can ask him questions, learn about him and the PPC. He is the most prominent PPC candidate in Canada, the most prominent PPC representative, aside from the leader of the party, Maxime Bernier, who I know you're all familiar with. But Michael will be joining us on the program, and you will have an opportunity on, what is that? That'll be Wednesday, right? Yeah, 18th tomorrow, Tuesday, so Wednesday night, the 19th, 7 p.m., Michael Bator, PPC, call in on that night and ask him questions. The floor is back to you guys. Who wants to take us forward?
Yeah, well, I'll prepare some question on that part, and I'll go right. That's for sure. Oh, by the way, Rick, your mic sounds a little bit edgy. I think that you're on your computer mic again.
It keeps flipping like that. Hang on, I'll fix it. All right. Well, you guys talk while I fix my microphone. Somebody say something of value.
Of value?
Yeah.
How's the snow in Montreal there, Dragon?
Oh my God. I would show you some picture, guys. You would just not believe how much snow I got in front of my door. I almost, you know what? It's probably looking like what you would call the ice wall from the Westeros of Game of Thrones. Seriously, you don't want to come in my town.
You might be lucky, Mr. Dragon, you had that snow because you didn't have a Vancouver outcome to the loss of that Team Canada game. It kept people inside, right?
Well, the weather has been terrible, in all across the whole region of Canada, U.S. over the past, I guess, probably 3 or 4 days. Looking ahead, it's still a news story here because they're still digging out, especially up around the Toronto area. They got hit pretty hard twice, with 2 storms, and it looks like we're in for some cold weather for the rest of this week.
They're saying, it's supposed to be minus 19, supposed to feel like minus 30.
Mm-hmm. We have minus 30 here in Alberta now the last 3 days.
Well, that reminds me that Thursday, they were pointing at, or Wednesday, last Wednesday, they were telling us in, say, Journal de Montréal and all the Montreal news outlet that Post Canada would not do their rounds probably for the next few days because of that storm. So kind of, warning us not to be afraid if we don't see the mail coming in.
That's excuse number 2 for Canada Post recently, ain't it? Yeah, it's the same thing with the schools here for the kids, right? And they'll send you a message in the morning. Buses aren't running. Schools are closed. Propane is freezing. We can't run them things.
And the kids are probably going, we're so disappointed.
I remember back years back that you Yeah, of course, they didn't get the message on the email or the text. You'd get the old party phone line would ring, and you'd have a neighbor telling you about it. But boy, I used to love those days.
When I lived in Timmins, we had the cop would come around with a loudspeaker because you're up there in the middle of nowhere, right? So the cop would come around early in the morning with a loudspeaker saying there's no school.
Oh, what a blessing for the kids.
Yeah, they'd be so disappointed, right?
Oh, we always were.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, my mom used to listen to radio in the morning, and as soon as she heard the name of my school being out of whatever because of a snowstorm, because she didn't want to let me at home. I mean, I was too of a mitzy little guy to do that.
Yeah, but we grew up. Oh, I did. I grew up in a generation where kids were seen and not heard, and if you were in the house, that was a problem.
Exactly. That's when they put you to work, right?
Got nothing to do. Let me help
Yep.
you with that. And you were out the door. Gone.
So I have footage of the actual crash. It's a little bit grainy, maybe a lot grainy actually, but we have it here. So let's take a look and see what we have on our hands. Hang on. Where'd we go? Oh, for crying out loud. Too many tabs, too much stuff. Where is it? Where is it? Which one? I lost it. It's up on the screen and I can't find the right tab over here. There it is. Okay, let's bring it up full screen and take a look. You have to look hard.
What is that? No, it's just one runway.
You can see it. It's so bad. Like, the quality is so terrible. I can't make head nor tails out of that.
It's just one runway.
Literally.
It's runway only.
You know, the other thing, Isabel, you said that it lost a wing.
Just one runway.
And from what I'm seeing here,
It's
beside the runway.
It could, if the wing was sheared off upon landing, it looks like it touches down. I can't tell what happens, but what if that wing comes off, then it would allow it to roll on the ground afterward, which would make sense
Well,
to
they
me.
did say a wing did come off. They did say that in the report.
Yeah. So that makes sense to me because, man, if that thing had come down on, like, if it had come down from the air on its roof, I just don't see anybody surviving. It would have, maybe some people would have survived, but it would have been much
No,
worse.
actually, what I think, it's like you said, the plane kind of rolled on itself, like it rolled left to right, basically on its wings. So that's how it survived.
Yeah, that makes
kind of thing.
That seems like a more viable theory, but again, I don't know, and I can't tell from that footage.
They did say that the wing, one of the wings did dislodge. So if the wing did dislodge, then the plane is actually going to be heavier on one side, so it would cause it to flip.
Yeah.
Like Dragon said, it would roll rather than somersault. It would have rolled.
Yeah, because if you had one wing on, one wing off, then with the side with the wing off, it would be able to roll in that direction, especially if the wind came across while it was on the ground sliding and got up underneath that wing that was still attached and provided lift, and it would roll over because it's it's basically a big tube, right? So it could roll on the ground over onto its roof.
Since you do see red there.
Yeah, those are flames. There was a fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a fire. And, the
they're lucky
fuel
that
is in the
didn't
wings,
continue.
eh? So if it comes off, then that explains a lot too.
That makes more sense. Like Dragon said, it would roll rather than somersault.
Right.
Because if it somersaulted, they would have been crushed.
Yeah, it would roll over onto its roof. That makes more sense to me.
Because say when you go for a landing, or if you go for when you start the engine and you just want to lift off, basically what you get is a yaw kind of maneuverable. That's when you tilt your nose up. So like Rick said, if the plane would have tilt the nose up and yaw just upside down, that would have just crushed the whole thing.
Yep.
So it did roll on itself.
I tell you what I see aside from the rest of this, though, is how many of y'all carry around phones that film in 720p resolution and can't focus? I mean, we're going to get just having some more clarity on the issue, and I think y'all are around the right lines of what happened was. Maybe there are multiple things that caused it, but they were, like you can see, they come in that low, and there's no controlled drop. They're basically barely touching that thing when they even do land, right? So there might have been stuff going on even before they had to fight that wind, and hopefully we'll see some better footage coming on, because I don't know, from what we see right now, everything is very indecisive. You look at footage like this.
I'd say it's a
miracle. You know what I don't notice? What I don't notice is I don't notice the landing gear.
No, they were not in control of that plane when it touched down. Whatever happened before, because they weren't even able to fight it. You see if aircraft land on we see on the the tarmac, usually they come. It's a controlled descent. It's not you touch the edge of it and glide across the rest of it, barely trying to hang on. And if that's what's happening, you're fighting already conditions on the ground that are difficult. But if you had something happen already in the air that hinders you from doing it, well, you've got a slim chance, right? You're praying.
Yeah, because even looking at this, before it even touches, like, you would think that the landing gear was down, which would have brakes, right? But
or at least be in the right
way
direction.
It's coming in, with the way it's coming in, it doesn't even look like the landing gear was down or their brakes, because of the way it's sliding in, and possibly the wing coming off. Like, it makes you
they
wonder.
duff into the snow at the end, looks like.
Yes, but even with the plane upside down, you don't see any wreckage of the landing gear.
Yeah, well, I don't think they had control of that thing. And like Dragon said, there might have been something going on even before. And if there was an icing wing or something like that, or even worse, a mechanical condition before they touched down, then they really had a struggle there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We can just be lucky, Be lucky that more
security-wise, I know that our planes are really well. How you call that? Just before
it's an inspection.
When you look into the plane before. Yeah, they do the testing and all that to make sure that everything is nominal for a lift up. So I mean, I'm pretty sure that, like I said, the problem could have come while they were coming in the air. Basically, the mechanical problem would have come from basically the weather and ice condition and so on. So it's kind of hard to for seasoned pilot to advert to those kind of situations.
So today we see these European leaders held an emergency meeting in Paris to align their position. This, of course, after the Trump administration saying they would not include the EU leaders or Ukraine in these talks, which begin tomorrow with Russia on the Ukraine war. So this signals a major change in the relationship between Europe and the United States, for sure. Not just Ukraine, but all of Europe.
Oh yeah.
Makes me very
Will it
uneasy. I
save
don't like
lives?
it. Thoughts?
We're in a scary situation. He became a real bulldog, and like we said before, a bull in the china shop. He's going to get some backlash, and now he's getting the backlash.
Yeah.
Well, Dragon said something very interesting the other night, and I didn't get a chance to talk with him about it because I didn't see him there. But it's not the first time that this stage has been set, and there's been other leaders that have escaped peril, and it's emboldened them as well, right? And I mean, we can only hope that it's for the better, but I mean, in the end, let's hope that this if they can negotiate something with Ukraine and Russia that stops people from dying, then I mean, I'm all ears at this point, because I mean, money put aside and economics put aside, what really does matter.
Sorry, what was the last part there? What?
I'm sorry, I don't know where I got cut off, but I said I wouldn't mind, if everything leads to where people stop dying, money put aside and economics put aside, then I want to listen to what they have to say. What are they going to propose as a solution that we haven't been able to do in the past while with the conflict, and how can we stop people dying?
Well, I mean, that's obviously a major consideration, but of course, what we need is a lasting peace, not something like even a ceasefire. May not be the most productive thing if it just leads to an even bigger or escalated conflict, months or even years from now, because the issues weren't properly resolved. It's a complicated.
We don't need another situation like we have in the Middle East coming because of it.
I don't know. It looks like we're going to get a pretty nice resort built there in Gaza, with golf courses, hotels, bumper cars, and water slides. That's
15-minute cities and credit.
Just like, I mean,
yeah.
I'm sorry, but people just keep
running,
finding ways to justify the crazy things he says, and as though it's like 4D chess. To me, that right there, that's insane. Just the way he said it, the way he's rolling that out, and
well, he's a troll, right?
The injustice in what he said.
His whole playing card is response, and he has to get you emotionally involved to be able to play that card.
Or it could be that he just says really stupid things, and then people make excuses for him. It could be that too, because that's pretty stupid.
He's in control at that point. Once people are answering to him, even if it's because of a stupid troll, or even if, say, like Elon goes and posts something online, and people react to it, now they're in his ballpark.
Well,
right? So that's how they're trying to control the whole outlook on the scenario.
You do actually have a very important point that you made there, which is that Trump and the political ideology even that he subscribes to, which is this new form of, I would call it neo-realism. It challenges people's perception of reality. When they say it's realism, what they're really meaning is that in many respects they recognize that politics, countries even, are just constructs, a psychological or a mental construct by people. And so you can actually construct a reality, which is to say that he's conditioning people by saying things like, we're just going to own it and build a resort there. And we're going to turn it into the Riviera of the Middle East. So he's getting people used to the idea. Or with the Gulf of America. He's actually showing that
once the idea is in your head, then you just dwell on it, and now
That's
you're
right.
dwelling on their terms.
So even what
right.
John was on earlier talking about General Vallely, his area of specialty is in psychological operations, psyops. He literally wrote the book on psyops. His record, his history going back to like the 1960s, and he says right in that paper that he wrote for the Pentagon that he tried to get them to adopt, he says right in there that the United States, using these psyops, will these concepts into reality. That's what Trump is doing in Gaza, with the Gulf of America. He says, I'm so powerful, I don't even need to consult with anyone. We're the major power. Everyone has to do what I say. From now on, it shall be called the Gulf of America. We're not going to consult with Mexico and change the name from the Gulf of Mexico. We're not going to consult with Cuba or any other country. I say so, therefore it is. Now that's the new reality. That's political realism in its most twisted and authoritarian form.
If it's adopted en masse, you win.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
and this is the thing, though.
I can tell you some. Oh, sorry. Go
ahead, Dragon. No, go ahead, Dragon.
All right. I'll be quick. I've been passing the past weekend to speak with old friends, and actually we were on Discord having conversation with Americans and people all around the world, basically. And I can tell you something. Some American doesn't even recognize Canada to being a sovereign country because they think that we were subsidized at some point back in 19-something. So it's like there's a lot of people that, they really believe and take every words that comes out of Trump's mouth, basically.
Yes, that's a very important point, Dragon, because he's constructing a reality for people in their heads about what Canada is. So when we've had some of our American friends calling in recently, they have this image created by Donald Trump that we are a completely corrupt country controlled by the Chinese, where the Chinese Communist Party owns most of our farmland, that they control our entire banking system to launder money for Mexican drug cartels, that we're a den of fentanyl, flooding the U.S. with this killer drug, and that our entire country is really just a figment of our imagination, that the border is just an artificial line that should just be forgotten about because it doesn't really exist. We're really just a 51st state anyway. We're not a real country, and we should just be the 51st state.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well,
what gets me, though, is...
I've been actually, just real quick, I won't be long. There's some guy who did actually confronted me on the fact that there's one of the act, I believe it was in 1906, that was basically subsidizing us. So he was trying to implement this argument to make it like more relevant. So, but actually, I did look it up, and it was true, but we're not subsidized. It's just a form of partnership between us and the U.S. So,
it's a lie. It's a lie. They don't subsidize us. We don't rip off the United States at all. The trade deficit is not even what he says it is. It's not 200 billion. It's not 250 billion. It's not 300 billion. I mean, he keeps making up these numbers as he goes along. It's a different number every day. It's about 40 billion a year, and there's justification for that, and it actually benefits the United States overall. We don't rip them off. If anything, the United States is ripping us off because they pay a reduced price for all the oil. They pay below market value for every drop of crude oil that we export to the U.S. They get it at a bargain basement price, always have.
So why do we sell it to them? Why don't we use it ourselves?
Well, because
Why don't we use it ourselves and free our people of the prices of this stuff now? Because I remember when it was 50 cents during COVID. And where is this money coming now that it's $1.50? I mean,
but you know it's not that simple because it's about getting the oil to market. And if you really want to use the oil to benefit the people, you need to get it to market. But as I've been saying, everybody's blaming our government for not building those pipelines. But I'm telling you, there's been foreign influence, foreign infiltration up here from the U.S. side to really, stifle the development of those pipelines east and west politically, so that they can then turn around and they just blame the Canadian government because of all the internal political conflict. But that's all fueled with outside influence.
Why not make it easy on them and eliminate it all?
Eliminate
okay,
what?
Here's the pipeline. Here, there's restrictions lifted. It goes all the way across Alberta now, into Montana, all the way. And so why don't they allow that export? Why don't they allow
the pipelines go down into the United States right now? But because of everything that's gone on, we do export it to the United States. That's the problem. They're the only. They're basically your only customer, and as a result, they take advantage of you and say, in Alberta, and they say, well, we'll buy your oil, but we want it at a discounted price, so we sell it at a discounted price to them. And then beyond that, do you know why you don't have refineries up there, man, in Alberta? It's because the Americans in these agreements wanted the refineries built on their side. So again, in order to take the crude, we have to ship it to them. They refine it on their side, then they ship it back to us as refined products, oil, the gasoline and the diesel and other products. That's why. You guys out in Alberta keep pointing your finger at Ottawa and Quebec, but it's about corruption. And if you want to know the source of a lot of that corruption, look at foreign governments. Look at the money that goes into environmental groups, NGOs that stage protests constantly to shut down your oil industry.
You're 100% right. It doesn't go into the Alberta economy. It goes into the federal one.
No, it goes. I'll tell you where it goes, my friend. It goes down into the United States and into the oil companies and the states that benefit economically from getting your discounted oil. That's why they don't want those pipelines built east-west. They want it to go south. They want the energy flowing their way so that they can profit from it. But it's all kind of cloak and dagger. And if you don't think that what we were talking about earlier doesn't play into that. Do you know what convoy came before the Freedom Convoy? Do you know?
So it does play into effect. But
what convoy came before the Freedom Convoy in 2022?
I'll tell you what convoy came into long before that was when the free men on the land movement. That's
all part of it too. But that is part of it.
Exactly.
And
you see
why?
the media pushed to dismiss that.
Why? Because they want to destabilize the government. They want to split it up. They want to split you off and take you over. So they want people to believe that Canada isn't a real country. You're touching on all the hot button issues. This is foreign infiltration into Canada. Do you want to know who the traitors are? You want to name the names? Look in the mirror, folks. A lot of these freedom fighters out there, especially from Alberta. You want to know who the traitors are? It's those guys, because they're the ones who are trying to destabilize and undermine Canada. That's the truth. A lot of those guys are the actual traitors, and they're the separatists. If you're a separatist, you are a traitor to the country because you want to break it up. You're not a patriot, not a Canadian patriot, but you know when a lot of these people say they're patriots, you know who they're patriotic to? The United States of America. Because they want to split off and join Canada as the 51st state. So I come back to my question, which I posed to you just a moment ago. What convoy came before the Freedom Convoy of 2022?
Well, I won't be able to answer
the
that.
The United We Roll Convoy of 2019 started in February of 2019. What was that about? It was all about the oil industry in Alberta. And a lot of the same people, including Mr. Pat King, was involved in that convoy in 2019. A lot of the same people that got involved in the Freedom Convoy of 2022, which was presented to the Canadian public as a protest against medical, COVID mandates, in reality, a lot of that was just it's the same damn people that were involved in the oil industry protest of 2019. And it was the same scenario. It was a trial run, my friend, for what happened in 2022. And while the majority of people were there, many things can be true at the same time. Yes, it was an organic protest for the vast majority of people who showed up. But at the heart of that, there was this core group of people who are out there because they want to separate from Canada. They want to destabilize the country. They were there to take advantage of the anger around the COVID mandates at the time. And if you want to know why the Canadian government was afraid, it's because they saw within some of those people a legitimate threat to the existence of the country, to the government. Because you have
you've
people
just justified the Emergencies Act.
That's why
COVID.
You got the Emergencies Act. And then we all, and I was among those people, were all blaming Trudeau for invoking it for no reason, but there were reasons for it. And if you want to blame somebody for the invocation of the Emergencies Act / War Measures Act at that time, maybe we shouldn't be looking just at the government, which I still blame because I think it was the wrong move and it was a bit of an overreaction, but the threat was real. And if you go into all the documents that Justice Rouleau had posted online, not just the stuff that was released during the Public Order Emergency Commission hearings after the fact, you can find documentation into all of this to support exactly what I'm saying. If the government responds to threats or to problems, and they responded to an actual threat
that's right, but they won't tell you what the threat is because they fear to embolden it, and that in itself tells you that it is really a legitimate threat.
No, right? They don't want to. You're saying what? There wasn't a legitimate threat because why?
What I'm saying is that they don't report on these facts in the media because that gives clout to what's going on. It gives people reason to research what's going on. It might draw people into that movement, right?
No, they didn't talk. They don't talk about it too much because it would be perceived as it's a diplomatic hot potato to sit there and have the government then say, you know what, there's this, I'm going to just throw it right out there. You have this general from the United States involved in intelligence gathering talking to Freedom Convoy organizers from his home in Montana, giving them direction and encouraging them, and then reporting directly back to Donald Trump. John is actually very right. If that isn't an existential threat to our sovereignty and our country during the Freedom Convoy, if that isn't justification for the invocation of the Emergencies Act, I don't know what the hell is. You have a general reporting back to a political leader in the United States and providing intelligence to the FBI, the Department of Defense, and the CIA in what can clearly be seen as potentially a color revolution unfolding on Parliament Hill at the time. And if you can't see that that's a potential existential threat to the very country that we hold dear, to our government at the time, that is a legitimate threat. But they don't want to talk about that because if they put that out there in that way, you were sitting on the
globalist response.
This is political reality, folks. You've got our government. If they say that out loud, that then becomes an international crisis. That is an ethical problem with General Vallely. That is an international incident.
There's a reason I didn't talk
ramifications, which could then precipitate some sort of a response from the United States, because then we are saying that we potentially have some sort of a possible invasion imminent, or that the government on some level in the United States is creating the conditions for the overthrow of the government. In Canada, our top ally, a superpower right on our border. So what the hell are they supposed to do? I'm getting it now. I understand, and I see it. Like, John's right when he calls in and draws this to our attention, because this is the classic playbook by superpowers, whether it's the United States or Russia. If you want to destabilize or overthrow a government that you disagree with, and they sure do disagree with Trudeau, the Trump administration, not that they were in power at the time, but they were running basically like kind of a shadow government and still working toward, the re-election at the time. And this general is reporting not just directly to Donald Trump, but also to CIA, FBI, DOD, says so right on his website. And he's involved in these political movements. And I mean, is he doing anything illegal? I don't know. Let's get him back on and ask him some of these questions, because it does raise these same questions for me. And if you want to do these things, then yeah, you have CIA, FSB on the Russian side. They fund separatist movements in other countries to create destabilization and to tear countries apart. So that they can then roll in here and say, well, we're here to save you because everything's destabilized and you've got basically a civil war on your hands. So I guess we better go up there and save you. We're going to come up and liberate your countries, aka.
So that's basically where the World Economic Forum is.
No, that's not World Economic Forum, my friend.
No, it's a foreign influence into how we should conduct our politics based on foreign intelligence, is it not?
That is absolutely foreign. That's foreign influence, infiltration into our political system, absolutely, and it's inappropriate at best, and an existential threat that warrants some sort of a very strong response from the Canadian government at worst, and maybe something in between. I don't know, but it's not right.
No, it ain't right. And Canada needs to do what's right for Canada, bottom line.
Yeah.
And that's what Trump is doing, so we'll do the same thing. And let's make it better for people.
I totally
in the
disagree.
Meantime.
What Trump's doing is not good for America, because we are America's best friend. And it's pretty clear that he's been punching us in the face when we haven't been looking for quite some time. And he's still doing it now, but he's doing it in the open. What?
That's what you do with your brother.
No, you don't. You don't do that to your friends.
You didn't have a brother growing up, did you?
Oh, yes, I had two brothers, and I was the youngest. So sometimes I got smacked around pretty good. But that's not what you do with your best friends. Not with your best trading partner, your ally, a country that has gone to war with you. That we've sacrificed on a per capita basis, probably more than any country in the Western the Western sphere of freedom.
And that's the point, right? We've been together for a long time. This isn't the line to draw in the sand, right? I mean,
Trump has gone to war with us, is what he's done. He's gone to war with Canada because he's got his sights set on the country. And it's been going on for a long time, longer than any of us realized. And he was hijacking, it appears, it may be, hijacking that convoy, a convoy that in the minds of most people was the most peaceful protest ever, and that certainly was true. But more than one thing has been true with that convoy at the same time. Not just two things, but multiple things.
When your most organic efforts have been thwarted by international interference, what do you back? What can you back?
Truth.
What can you back at that
truth,
point?
and you back what we are, which is a country that is dedicated to freedom, that is dedicated to the ideals of individual rights and freedoms. That's what you back. You
agree
back
with that 100%.
democracy. true democracy, and you stand against tyranny, authoritarianism, and foreign infiltration and foreign influence into your government, into your country, which is an assault on democracy, which is absolutely abhorrent and wrong and disgusting
100%.
because it's an assault on us. He's punching us in the
100%.
face.
But when a lot of this information comes from foreign intelligence agency like Mossad and the CIA and FBI, what can you take on face value as a Canadian interest? When you're
How
getting
the hell
fed
did
this
Mossad
information
get
from foreign
involved?
interests,
Just take Mossad
From
right
all-
off
I'm
the
saying
table.
global.
Mossad has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now. This
it is because they take
no, it
federal
doesn't.
government-
It's take your anti-Semitic Mossad bullshit and just
It has
put that
nothing to do
aside
with
for
the-
now.
with the
You can go do your
Semitic.
Mossad rabbit hole crap later. What I'm giving you is
Rick, it has nothing to do with one agency. It's the fact that they're going from all of the globalist agencies and taking that information into context.
This is Donald J. Trump. That's what this is, my friend. And political and this neo-realist ideology. He's the process of taking over the country is happening now. That's not, and yeah, it is the New World Order. All right, but it ain't what people were thinking.
Just in a different fashion.
Well, I've just laid it out for you. This is what's been going on. So take it for what it's worth, but take your Mossad crap and save it for another day. That's not got anything to do with
I
this.
didn't single them out specifically, Rick. I just labeled them as one of the many organizations that Canada is getting its news from, as far as when our foreign ministers try to be brief on, on
was the
what's
CIA
going on in
giving us the
intelligence.
proper information?
That's just
What was
one
going on?
of the.
The problem is too down in
CIA
the States
isn't,
right now. They're a
FBI
completely
isn't. They're all
dysfunctional
playing with us.
system, and right now you've got basically a democratic coup that has taken place down there because it's not just a change of government; it's a purge. It's very reminiscent of what happened during after the Nazis took charge in Germany. Prior to World War II, when they took control, they purged their public service, their entire system of government, putting in only people that were aligned ideologically with what they thought. And it's the same thing that Stalin did, and Lenin when the communists took control and formed the Soviet Union, and then later Stalin. There was a purge that took place. This is not just a change of the guard. It's not a continuation of what has been, the United States that we've known. This is completely different, completely new, and that's why we are under attack up here. This is a complete geopolitical realignment into a more of a carving up of the world into hemispheric spheres of control by the great giant superpowers, China, Russia, and the United States. And Canada is one of the crown jewels in all of this. It certainly is for the United States.
And we have to know where we stand on that playing field.
Where we stand is right on the edge of losing our sovereignty, our country, our right to self-determination, our country. We're on the precipice of having it all snatched away from us. Our destiny, our children's future. It's all about to be taken from us because some people, especially a lot of the people out in your neck of the woods in Alberta, are ready to give it all up for what they think they're going to get, which is some sort of a crazy tax break.
The thing that struck me the most is that the one person that said that Canada has no culture, has no identity, he's the one that's speaking for us right now.
Well,
so where do we stand?
This is, that's the problem on the other side. I make no excuses for the things that he has done and the mistakes, the stupid things he said either. So there is that. But right now, my friend, there is one serious threat to the country, and it's coming from one place, and that is south of the border in the White House. And that's the truth. And that there's no denying that. The United States poses an existential threat to this country right now. Who wants to save Canada?
Yeah, I tell you though, the first way the idea gets into your head is somebody trolling, right? and
It's
then
not.
it starts to take form a little bit more.
How many
But
times does he have to say he's not kidding? How many?
Yeah, but
He's not trolling.
You emphasize
Wake
the
up.
lie, right? If you repeat the lie enough times, people believe it. We've learned that before.
Yeah. Man,
but that's where we need to take a stand.
We do need
so
to take a stand.
we need to know where we stand, and we need to go back to our cultural values. And we know what Canada is. A bunch of hardworking people doing their job every day, working off of the land that God has given us, and making prosperity. That's all there is to it.
It comes down to
we
this.
need to go back to self-sustainability.
There's one thing that we need to do, just one thing right now. All these other things, put them aside. All of our differences, everything that we disagree on, just put it to the side for the moment. There's just one thing that we need to do. We need to save our goddamn country. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. It doesn't matter if you're a liberal, a New Democrat, a conservative, a Green Party person. I don't care if you're a communist. I don't care what you are. If you want the right to self-determination, if you want to continue to be able to vote, if you value anything that we have up here at all, there's just one thing. Put everything else aside and just get behind saving the country. He can't take the country over, not really, if we don't comply. If people just say no, there's enough support even on the U.S. side to stop this.
Yeah.
But if we just bend the knee and go, oh, well, I guess it'll be okay. We'll get a tax break and we'll have the U.S. dollar. You think he's going to give you, exchange dollar for dollar at par, your Canadian dollars for U.S. Think again. That's not going to happen. You don't even know the terms of the deals yet. The deal that he's going to make with Canada. I don't want a goddamn deal. I don't need a deal. I want my country. Right. So hands off Canada. Simple as that. That's it.
You know the old analogy
don't
of
wrestling
with a pig, right? You don't come away smelling good after wrestling with him, even if you do win. And the pig knows it the whole time. So, I mean, we're at a point where we have to find our ideals, what we need to back as a country, and say, look, we stand up for this as a country. This is what we believe in. We don't believe in all of this stuff that you're trying to push. I don't know. That's another can of worms getting into all of the woke stuff. But to stand on our own 2 feet and say, look, this is what we are. This is what we're doing. Like it or not, this is how it's going to be. And we're going to develop our resources. We're going to use our resources. And whatever your export nonsense is like, if you don't want to deal with us, don't deal with us. We'll keep it. And you can do your own stuff.
Let me tell you.
There's plenty of other countries. There's China. There's Japan. There's India. Many countries that'll deal with us. We don't need to be
except that he's not going to want us to deal with China. And if we expand our trade with China, he'll say that's an existential threat to the United States, that it's a security issue. So he'll try to prevent us from doing trade with China or other countries. Why do you think he's really ramping up all the China fear right now? That's what's going on there. I mean, there are problems with China, but that's part of what it is. And I'll tell you where else this is going, and I've seen this. I told you 2 years ago this was coming. I told people over 2 years ago this was coming down the pipe. And you know what's coming next? They're going to... All right, let me ask you all this. Everybody in the chat, everybody here, everybody on the screen with me right now. Are you Nazis?
Nope.
Anybody?
No.
Anybody here a Nazi?
No.
I don't believe so.
No.
I wouldn't identify as one.
Yeah,
put it
well,
in Canadian terms.
if there's a referendum on this issue and Canadians vote to keep their country, I guarantee you, this country will be painted as a Nazi state, a Nazi nation, and that will be further justification for what they want to do up here. You mark my words, it's coming because it's already started.
But they've already stated that we're a terrorist country.
Yes. And
they've said it numerous times, and then having that guy in Parliament sure as hell didn't help.
Which was in my view, that whole thing was a setup.
That was a setup, and Roca took the fall.
Yep.
I wouldn't give them the credit for being that smart.
Oh, they're that smart.
they can't run.
This
they
is a
can't
very
ma-
sophisticated psyop.
For psyops, maybe, as far as running the country.
Oh, setting that up was so easy. So easy. They went out, they identified that guy. They identified that guy. They've got foreign influence. You keep people saying it's China, China, China in our government, and there's some Chinese influence in there for sure, but there's also American influence right in there, right inside our government. And I guarantee you that there were people who set that whole thing up, and it wasn't that hard to do it at all.
No.
They had that ready to go. The information warfare that came out immediately that day.
They definitely identified the convenient opportunity. That's for sure.
It was all
that's
all
a playbook,
done.
Isn't it?
They had images of Yaroslav Hunka on stamps for the PSYOP. That wasn't even true. That they made those up. There was a whole propaganda campaign that flowed after that. They were ready for it. That was Russia. That was the U.S. They were. I'm telling you, man, that whole thing was a giant setup. And you mark my words. I'll say it right here, right now. If it comes to that, you can hold my feet to the fire on this. They're gonna say Canada's a Nazi nation. If it comes to a referendum,
He already said it. Putin, when he interviewed with Tucker, told you exactly that. He told you. He mentioned Canada in the list.
See,
literally the first country.
So you got it. So we got it.
It's not the first time that the mental conditioning is being put into play. Right?
That's right. I'm telling you. That's why I'm telling you that's where it's going. And then they use that as further justification because they have to denazify us. You see.
That's right. But let's not use it as the excuse to be blind. Let's take advantage of the situation and build Canada better because of it. It's gonna.
Well,
what harm can come from developing our own resources?
Nothing. I'm 100% behind you with that, man. I'm with you there. The thing is, though, we only get to do that if we save the country. So we got to get behind that first and thwart this thing.
And people are pushing the made in Canada, and they're pushing self-resource and self-reliant.
And
I hope that
take it 100%. 100%, and it's taken this existential threat to cause it.
Here's the key.
Yes.
Here's the key to our survival. This is the key. Is everybody listening? Because I've got it figured out.
Sure.
We are on our own, not a significant military power, but we are a significant economic power. We are a G7 developed nation. And we have massive resources, which also makes us a powerful economic nation heading into the future, like a world superpower economically. But we need support, and we can't stand alone because no nation is an island. So where do we go for support? Not to China, because that will be seen as a immediate existential threat to the United States. Can't do that. It's a trap. You know where you have to go? Back to our roots. Where do we find that? The exact opposite place where all these people who are telling you your country is a myth want to take us. The opposite place, the UK. We have to go back to Britain. And because we are still a Commonwealth country. And in that regard, we actually have a longer history than the United States does as its own entity as a nation state. We're much older because we have a shared history up sort of to that point, up until 1776. Then they split off. We must not join them. We need to, in the long run, we need to strengthen our ties with the monarchy and the UK. The monarchy does not dictate what happens with our government. They rubber stamp our legislation. Yes, it has to receive royal assent. But the people who would have us lose our country, these sovereign citizens, they lie constantly and suggest that it's the monarchy that controls everything. No, it's the monarchy that is our insurance policy, always has been and still is. This is the way we save our country, to preserve it so we can move forward and realize our destiny as a nation. We cannot sever our ties to the UK. to join the U.S. because we will lose our sovereignty. If we keep our ties to the UK, we preserve our sovereignty because we have those ties already. And you see, we do have sovereignty. We do have a constitution with our ties historically and politically to Britain and the UK. That's why we are so much stronger than we stand alone.
Because really our sovereignties come from the Creator and God and not from any monarchy. And the whole fact that the monarchy claimed the power of God
our
to be
sovereignty
appointed.
does not. Our rights as individuals do, but our sovereignty does not. Because our sovereignty is what you can defend. That's what Donald Trump is telling you right now. You don't exist as a country. You're just going to have to be a state because we, the United States, the Trump U.S. is so powerful that we dictate, and we're just going to take you over, and there's nothing you can do about it. And we're going to do the same thing in Greenland, and we're going to do the same thing in Panama, and we just did it with the Gulf of Mexico.
Let somebody else talk.
That's it.
Because the USA left in 1776, and they separated like a lost piece of the jigsaw puzzle. They want the rest to be like that so that we can be dependent on them. Right. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
And that's not going to happen. If people realize this is the goal, and we see the goal, if people would open their third eye, maybe they would see the goal. The goal is to destroy us by making us feel weak. But I don't understand why people are like, this guy's going around saying, I want this and I want that and I want that and I'm just going to take it. And nobody goes, wait a minute.
Yeah.
No.
But maybe because of the impotence of government through the ages not being able to accomplish anything. Because they can say whatever they say, but it ain't actually going to transfer into something that happens. So this might be one of the first times with Trump that, it actually does have gravitas, for the better or worse.
But it's taken this to make Canada realize
who they are, exactly.
And now you're seeing more, and I do see some Americans who are patronizing us, waving the flag and saying, we support that, and we support you. We don't want to be part of Canada. We don't want you to be part of us. I even see it coming up from New Zealand and Australia. Other people are seeing it.
Yeah.
So if those people can see it,
very true.
Come on, Canada.
Other colonies, of course.
For?
And Trump has to stay off us, because if he attacks us in some way, he's not just attacking us. He's attacking the Commonwealth. He's attacking the UK. This is our strength, folks. We don't need to stand alone. We're not alone. And I would say that probably 50 plus, probably 60% of the United States probably will support us too, maybe more, because depending on how much of the Donald Trump's psychological conditioning takes hold down there.
Rick, I don't want to get on a tangent, but you had a great series of episodes a while back about UNDRIP and the UN Declaration of Indigenous Rights. Mm-hmm. And so why are they even dealing with the Canadian government at this point when literally most of our property rights have been given to the Indigenous? So what's going on here?
No. It's not. The Indigenous rights run in parallel, even under UNDRIP, to what the federal government has, because even though the federal government using UNDRIP is really integrating UNDRIP into the tapestry of Canadian law, it's not that it's just handing everything over. And in fact, I'll say this too. This is the other trap that First Nations are falling into here. If the United States assimilates Canada, those treaties that First Nations have, they basically go out the window. And there are, I think, over 600 different treaties across the country. And, especially for, say, like the Iroquois, which, fought with us in the War of 1812, alongside the British Empire loyalists of the time, against the United States. their rights are dependent as a sovereign, as nations within a nation. It's dependent on the existence of Canada, which also goes back to our ties with the Commonwealth and UK. So in order to preserve your rights, while people are telling you we have to decouple from the monarchy in order for you to have your sovereignty, and saying that to even First Nations people, it's a lie. We need to preserve the country, preserve our ties to the UK in order to preserve the treaties that ensure that our First Nations have their rights as nations within a nation preserved. If you blow up the country, you blow up those treaties. And then Donald Trump gets to dictate whatever these people get to have.
So let me play devil's advocate for a moment here. So if our exports were tariff-based instead of taxation-based, and the Indigenous had absolutely no effect on what they got based on the fact of that change, then, it's pretty much the ultimate troll in the face of the existing system, because they would be getting what they're due through the tariffs, through the Canadian, through our Canadian system still, and they would still not be getting taxed. That's just if we were to jump onto the bandwagon.
Tariffs.
Right?
How are you characterizing these tariffs? How is it that you think these tariffs work, and would then do what?
What I'm saying, to clarify it a little bit, is so right now a lot of our export goes through reservations and whatnot. It does go through the states. It does go to other countries. And based on the current taxation system, there's no income taxation on that.
And if you don't like living here, then you can go back.
Sorry?
I think
I didn't hear
somebody said something, but continue. Explain what you're saying about these tariffs and how you think they work.
So what I'm saying, and so if we were to jump on the bandwagon with counter tariffs and all of whatnot, it's still how people are suggesting. So right now, what we've got is a lot of our export is actually going through Indigenous land, taking advantage of that, and they're not. The Indigenous aren't paying any income taxation on those exports.
No, hang on. Explain what you mean by that. Tariffs are going through Indigenous lands. What are you talking about?
I'm not sure if I misspoke, but I meant to say that a lot of our exports are going through Indigenous lands, and they're not paying any income taxation.
What do you mean they're going? How do you mean exports are going through Indigenous lands? Explain.
Well, a lot of the pipelines run through Indigenous land, and there's a well, how do you say it? They get a cut of the profit made off of it.
Okay,
and,
all right, pipelines.
Yeah, and they don't have to pay a taxation on that, right?
That's not
because
okay, but that's not
So,
when it goes to Indigenous lands, that's not an export, though. But
yeah, hear me out. That's all a loss of taxation, right? And that's a huge amount of our export that's not being taxed. So, if per se we were to move onto a counter tariff system and use export tariffs, all of a sudden, all of those resources we would be receiving income from. Where right now, we're not receiving an income taxation from any of that. So, in that side alone,
tariff works.
It would be a consumer-based tariff.
That's not a tariff. A tariff, if we have
tax, basically, the same thing.
I don't think you understand what a tariff is.
Well, it's basically a tax on export, isn't it?
No.
I thought it should be, when it comes to countering it with our resources.
No, you don't even understand. I'm sorry, I don't mean to, maybe I can help. Okay, the way the tariffs work, it's actually quite simple. Trump imposes an across-the-board 25% tariff on all Canadian goods going into the United States. So the way it works is, say I produce Bic pens, in Canada, and then we ship them to the United States. When they get to the border, the way it works is the company, say Walmart, down in the States, buys all these Bic pens from Canada Bic, right? Whatever the price is that they paid, they apply a 25% tax at the border that Walmart pays going into the United States. Then when that Big Pen is sold, it costs Walmart 25% more. So instead of $1, it now costs them $1.25 US wholesale. So then people, when they go to buy it, Walmart increases their price by at least 25%. It costs the consumer on the U.S. side 25% more. It hurts Canada because instead of buying that pen from the Canadian factory, Walmart might buy that pen from a Bic factory in China. Or maybe they'll go to another factory in the United States where they produce Bic pens or a reasonable copy of that. Now, on the other side, if Canada has retaliatory tariffs, the way that works is then we say, well, if you're going to tax Bic pens coming out of Canada, then we're going to tax magic markers coming from Kentucky. And when they show up at the Canadian border, if that magic marker costs $1 Canadian, then at the border, the Canada Customs charges we'll say Giant Tiger, Canadian retailer, a 25% tax at the border. So now it costs Giant Tiger, instead of $1 per magic marker, it's $1.25. They put it on the shelf over here. We all end up paying more to buy that magic marker. And it hurts the manufacturer in the U.S. because we can't buy as many. We can't afford as many. Production goes down. Everybody's suffering now. Now consumers are all paying at least 25% more for everything. And that's the way a tariff works. It's not what you're saying, what you just laid out is like it's a tax. But it's not a tax.
It's all tax.
But we don't get the revenue from that.
Hello?
We don't get the revenue from any transactions on the Indian reserves. That's what I'm saying. If you get 1% through the tariffs, it's more than what's currently being put in as an income.
So what was where were you trying to take that so I can understand?
Where I'm trying to take it is if we're developing our own resources, even if we're doing it through indigenous lands, if they want to put us a tariff to export or to bring the stuff in, then we'll put a tariff onto it. When we collect from it, we're going to be getting more than we have been getting before. So it's again in our interest to produce our own resources for the people that own it, be it indigenous or whoever else, right? It's for the country.
Well, to a degree, but you need economies of scale. It isn't that simple because you can't replace, shipping to external markets. Like the United States has over 300 million people. In Canada, we have like 440 million. We only have like 40 million people. So we can't
have regulation on production.
So we can't.
Right?
You can't replace the revenue. You see, you'd lose your economies of scale. We can't just keep our car factories open the way they are and supply the Canadian market with automobiles in the way that it currently is set up because we don't have the supply chains. We wouldn't be able to produce as many models. You have a market the fraction of the size.
But OPEC has done the same with oil and proven that they can regulate all of the production across multiple countries and keep it low in certain countries just to keep a good average.
That's because they produce so much and they supply the world market. So they have the levers of power on supply. They can control price because they control so much of the supply. So they can affect the supply and demand equilibrium just by increasing or decreasing their production levels.
Exactly, and that's the type of thing that we could do exactly the same.
No,
here
we
in
don't
this
have.
country.
We don't have enough, and we have no way currently of getting enough of our raw oil, the crude oil, to market, and it's going to take some years to achieve that.
Currently, is your basically your winning point to everything is we don't have that infrastructure, and we need to develop that because that's what gives us strength. And again, we're not going to find it anywhere else but in our own country.
Sure, I'm not disputing that. I'm all for it. Go ahead.
The problem I see is that we've been so friendly across the border, that we've actually screwed ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, like I said, I used to work factory, and I've seen 5 factories in London alone for Siemens shut down and go to Mexico.
Yeah.
So, and this is the thing, we've been so easygoing and saying, oh yeah, we could do that. That's going to work out. And now we're in the situation where we are. And I've seen this years and years ago where companies were shutting down and leaving and thinking, oh good, the market's better there. It's cheaper to produce it there. Yeah. But you're cutting your own risk doing that. Mm-hmm. And that's what we've done.
You're very right. Because it comes back to the exact same thing that we were talking about before, is you're setting a mental precedence for things to happen in the future. And when we're telling Canadians, oh, you're sorry, you're so polite, and this is, who's telling you that? That's the media. They're conditioning you not to fight. Literally. They're conditioning you not to be, aggressive towards anything in your face. Because they're telling you who you are. And we don't need to be told who we are. We have our cultural identity. We've grown up with good folks that have taught us that.
Darn right.
We don't need to be told by the federal government who we are, or anybody else for that matter.
So are you on Team Canada?
Well, what is the new...
Heck yeah.
What is the car company, and is it Nissan that said they were going to leave the state?
Oh, did Nissan say they're going to leave? I don't know.
That's what I heard on one of the Fox reports, that Nissan said they were going to leave the state.
I don't know. I didn't hear that.
They were considering leaving the states because of all the tariffs.
Oh, well.
Which would be great. I mean, we're starting to learn that we need to be self-sufficient. And we're starting to learn, but like you say, Rick, this is going to take years.
Yes.
And he's got us right now by the low-hanging fruit, shall I say?
So he thinks, but he is wrong.
Yes, he's wrong, but he's putting that in people's minds. Mm-hmm. And I don't see why there's no rebuttal to this guy.
There will be. It's coming in a major way.
I mean, okay, Greenland is taking a stand. Mexico is taking a stand. Mm-hmm. And so we have allies.
Look,
we do have allies.
Just Canada and Mexico together.
Yeah.
We can hold him to account. Look, Canada and Mexico together, I think we make up about 40 to 45% of all the products that go into the United States. If we stand strong, just us two together, and say no, it's not going to be like this. As we head into these new USMCA trade negotiations, there's so much leverage there that we can make him cry like a little baby if we really wanted to. Well, we can squeeze
him. He's in the middle, right?
Yep.
They're in the middle, and I did see the president of Mexico when she came on. She was very stern.
Oh yes, rightly so.
She's not going to back down.
Yep. And we don't want to hurt the U.S. We want to trade.
No.
Go ahead. Who's over there? Who's the new person?
Hello, Rick.
Hello. Who's that?
It's Rimby John. I had to call in again.
Team Canada welcomes you back, sir.
Well, thank you, sir. Just a couple of things to clarify. I'm part American. I'm embarrassed. My family came up from Hinder, Minnesota in 1918. Mm-hmm. And, we had a very successful thrashing business with 3 Norwegian brothers, and my grandfather left them for Canada. Thomas Alexander.
Oh, my God.
We came up here. And there's a reason, Rick, we came to Canada was probably for a better life. Mm-hmm. And my friend from Alberta, I'm assuming Indigenous, 21% of the oil and gas in Alberta, it's privately owned. And 10% of that is by Indigenous nations like Ochi, Hobbema. They got casinos here. They're doing very, very well. And they've been treated okay. And I mean, I'm just Team Canada. We have our own internal problems, but we need to work it out. as family members with no provincial trade. We need to treat each other with love and respect, and we got to stand for Team Canada, Rick.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that, and I agree with you.
Yeah, I agree
Amen
too.
to that.
Yep. And Dragon, I love you, my friend. The big bear hug, grizzly bear hug from Banff, Alberta, my friend. I love you guys. I really, really do. And I think a lot of the issues, Rickster, Maverick News, between Quebec and Alberta have been political, federal propaganda. I met lots of people from Quebec on the freedom thing, and we're all on the same page. We just want a better Canada. We want a better Quebec, a better Newfoundland, a better Prince Edward Island. We want a better Ontario. We want a better BC, Manitoba, Saskatchewan. We got the greatest country in the world, my friends. God bless the United States of America, and I do. May God bless Canada. We are so wealthy with our resources. We can go it on our own. Forget the 1,900-pound orange orangutan.
Yeah.
And we're such a large continent. Like country on this continent.
Yeah.
Right on.
We've got
and
the
it's
brightest,
not the government that
brightest
makes us
future.
great. It's the people and our culture and our nation and our environment.
That's right.
That's what we
Yep.
have to realize.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. Yes. And I think there's enough of us lately who have finally woken up with get the rest of them to wake up and realize that that's going to turn this around.
Yeah.
Because the bull in the china shop down south is not going to get his way.
Not in the end.
He's going to find out just how resourceful us polite Canadians are.
Yes, and
well, but Isabel from Alberta. I don't know if Rick mentioned Brian Lilly from Toronto Star had an interview with Steve Bannon, and whether you like Steve Bannon or not, he's got a huge amount of respect for Canadians. We've sacrificed more in World War I and II than any other Americans. He's got a lot of respect, and a lot of this is a lot of Trump kind of horse crappy that he's pumping out there. And I mean, we're much stronger together. But treat us fairly, with dignity. We're the little brother, big sister. Treat us with respect. Or Indigenous. Just treat us in a proper manner. This could have been approached a very, very different way, but I think there's a bigger thing going on, Rick, behind the scenes, which you'll probably explore later on in the future. I think there's much, much more going on here, boys and girls, than we realize. I really do. Canada's in play. Russia wants to take us over. China. It's not just the orange orangutan in the White House. This thing is a much, much bigger thing. And Rick, again, I love you so much. You are a true Canadian, and I know you're going to die for this country. You put your life on the line.
I don't want to die, though, John. I'm living for the country. Okay, can we leave it there? Thank you. Can I be a living martyr? Does that work?
Sure.
As long as I'm not behind bars, I don't want to go there either.
I don't want to turn my TV on and you're not there.
My goodness.
Well, and again, Rick from Alberta, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be on your show, and it's your show. You've given Rickster a voice from Alberta through Rimby John Scotty. You've given Alberta a voice. Am I on the money most of the time? I think I am. Boots on the ground, on the street. Brendan Kennedy, Brian Howell in Kingston, our new friends, Brendan from Innisfail, Isabel Dragon. We all have a different perspective, but you know what? We are together, Rick. We are Team Canada, my friend. We are sovereign dominion. We are stronger together, and we just are. And God's blessed us with our guardian angels. We are stronger together.
We are
much stronger.
And
Yep,
we're strong.
we are.
We're stronger when we're together with the United States too, but as a neighbor and an ally, not as a 51st state.
That's right.
Indeed.
Amen to that.
Who else jumped in during their fires with our water bombers?
Well, it goes beyond that. It's like, who's there?
Wasn't any of the countries they gave sanctions to or aid during war, that's for sure.
Like, who's there at the table internationally when you need help? Canada. Who helped as a separate nation state during the Iran hostage crisis? Who got those hostages out? Canada. That's who did that. That was Canada. Yeah. That's because we love the United States and the people of the United States, and we've always been there with you together. And it can be thus heading into the future. Let us remember that and work toward that with mutual respect. Yeah. And together we are stronger as a neighbor, as neighbors, and as allies, not as an assimilated entity within what this perverted, aberrated vision of the future that is being presented to us by Donald J. Trump is. No. Fight
but I do see some of the unions down there, the car union, are disappointed with this because they see what's happening, even though they backed him.
Yeah.
But Rick, you got to remember, I talked to my Lutheran friend in Morrisburg, Ontario all the time, Volker Gritzner, and he says, rapacious capitalists. That's what Americans are. Rapacious, and I had to look the word up in the Webster's Dictionary, rapacious capitalists. And they're out for the world. They're also incredibly, and I'm part of American, and I'm apologizing to my friends, my relatives in Minnesota. They are so arrogant. They got to knock the arrogance off. You don't slap your sister in the face in Canada. You love her up. You say, how can we make our families better and stronger, including Mexico? Mexico ain't so bad. We're stronger together. They got to knock off this arrogance they've got and come to the table and be real and truthful, and we're much stronger together with God's help and our guardian angels. And let's never, Richter, Maverick News, let's never forget God in all of this. They say so famously in the United States of America on their dollar bill, in God we trust. We do. We all trust in God. It's not just the United States of America. It's the world. And we need to get God back in our lives, folks. And we need to get it back in Canada, big time. Because God blessed Canada. We are the second largest land mass in the world, the second or third largest oil and gas reserves, with fisheries, lumber, mines and minerals. Canada would not be anything without British Columbia, Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Ontario, Quebec, Nova Scotia. We are stronger together, my folks. We really, really, really are. And Ralph Klein, my famous premier in Alberta, when all the premiers got together, Ralph was always the guy that got everybody together at the end of the day. And you know what they had, Rick? A big Chinese dinner. And brought everybody together. And we need to get back to those basic family values.
Well, guys,
I'm sorry with my sermon tonight. I love you guys.
But now I haven't had dinner, and I'm hungry. And now you're mentioning Chinese food, and I'm like, makes me want to get to dinner. So why don't we go around the screen, I guess, and get you guys to give us final thoughts for tonight. Dragon, let's start with you.
Well, I will tell you guys, stay positive and stay united. Don't tread on my country and my Canadian flag, please. We are all so proud of us. So, yep, that's what I'm going to say for last word.
Okay.
Good night.
Who's next up against Dragon there? Who's that?
I guess I'm next on the screen.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
Well, there's a great great chat with everybody, and I'll finish by saying that Rimby is right when it's trust that God is literally printed on the currency, but in the same sense, you can walk into a shop and say cash is not accepted here. So that's kind of the crossroads we stand at as society right now.
Yeah. And who's still on the line with us? Somebody dropped off. Is that Isabel?
I'm still here. No, I'm still here.
All right, go ahead. Yeah.
My thought for, and I'm with John out in Alberta. I just want to bless everybody. Just keep strong. Stand together, shoulder to shoulder. We're going to get through this. We can do it.
Yeah, we
can do it.
I think so too. On that front,
I'll
I
just
am
sign
optimistic.
off.
The real question here, folks, is can Team Canada do it on Thursday night?
Yeah,
they didn't beat Finland just to shake hands with the States.
Yeah,
we're gonna be in for a good one, boy.
It's going to be war on ice on Thursday night. I'm sure of that.
But I will say one last thing. Maybe I didn't like the booing for the U.S.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand their anger, but it warmed my heart to see that whole stadium for once bellow out, "Oh, Canada."
Indeed.
And we need to bellow that out more, because you hear them sing their anthem. We need to do the same on a regular basis.
And you know who was there? Justin was there, and I hope he takes point from it, because that's our identity.
Yes,
Yes.
I agree with that too.
Yes.
Hey, guys.
So I will say good night and have a great night.
All right. Thank you guys for calling in and being part of this, and all your comments. Great conversation tonight.
Well, one more comment, Rick. Rimby John.
Yeah.
A final thought. Thank you, everybody, for calling in tonight. It's wonderful, Rick, that you have the new phone system. And again, I could just cry, Rick, tears of joy. I thank you so much as a freedom fighter friend that you reignited your Maverick News channel, and you give this real anonymous people a voice that they can call in from anywhere in the world. We've had calls from Texas, Florida, France, Greece. Like, we really, truly, over the years, Rick, and I've been riding shotgun with you, and I know you've made huge sacrifices that a lot of people don't realize. I realize it. And thank you again for giving a little old oil farm guy from an unknown town in Rimby, Alberta, a voice on your show to give people a bit of a shoe-in from Alberta. And it could be Gina from BC, a Dragon from Quebec. Thank you. And I don't think a lot of people realize the sacrifices you make. I do. I realize them. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart, my friend, because if there is a Team Canada, it's called Rick Walker. And it's called mavericknews.ca on a worldwide platform, on Rumble and BitChute and CloudHub and all that, you know. You know where I'm coming from, my friend. I love you. Love from Alberta.
And love right back at you. Love all you guys. Support the channel at freedomreporters.com, please, so we can pay for this phone system and pay for the software and pay for the subscriptions. And we need your help to stay on the air. So, yes, please donate at freedomreporters.com. Yes, I am begging, please. And with that being said, love all you guys. Love you, Mavericks. Keep fighting for freedom, real freedom. And God bless America. And go Canada. With that, I'm going to throw it over to Cosmo, my freedom dog, and he'll take us out tonight with that tune that we've all become familiar with, Free Dog by Maverick and the News Brothers. See you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern, on The Flip Side.
I heard old Cosmo howling last night up on the hill where the moon shines so bright. He was singing a tune chasing his dreams. He's far from home with a heart full of love and a spirit so free. He's living his life wild and carefree. If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? Cosmos free, running wild, wild as a wind can be. He's a free dog. He's a free dog. He's a free dog. He's got the stars in his eyes, the wind in his fur, a tail that wags like it's never heard of a blur. Cosmos on a journey, he's got no chains. He's running through fields, breaking all the lanes. Now the night's getting cold and the sky's turning gray. With Cosmos still out there, he's miles away. He's not looking back, he's got his path to tread. With every step, he's leaving his path. If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? Cosmos free, running wild, wild as a wind can be. He's a free dog. He's a free dog. He's a free dog. So if you're feeling lost, just think of Cosmos Run. Remember his spirit, his freedom, his fun. And maybe one day, when you're feeling alone, you'll find your own freedom and let your spirit go. If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? Cosmos free, running wild, wild as a wind can be. He's a free dog. He's a free dog. He's a free dog. Stars in his eyes, the wind in his fur, a tail that wags like it's never heard of a bird. A heart full of love and a spirit so free. He's living his life wild and carefree. He's got the stars in his eyes, the wind in his fur, a tail that wags like it's never heard a word. Cosmos on a journey, he's got no chains. He's running through fields, breaking all the lanes.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.